Here's another interesting one for you. I kind of think this one shows it doesn't matter if you're perfect or not. Just be honest. In this one, mom is in the military. She was stationed overseas. At some point in time, she divorced dad. When she came back, she was trying to get stationed where dad lives. He had the kids while she was overseas, obviously. But as you know, with the military, they don't always put you where you want to be put. So she ended up in Idaho. She met someone else, got married. She is getting out of the service, but her new husband is still in for a while, and he got stationed in Alaska. Some people might be like, oh, I think that's cool. So she is petitioning the court to allow her to move the kids from Idaho to Alaska. Dad's over in South Carolina. So dad is fighting this. He doesn't think the kids should go to Alaska. I think this is an awesome experience for kids to spend a couple years in Alaska. I mean, how many people get that experience? Anyways, so that is what we're here on. Mom and dad, where are the kids going to live? Dad's attorney is actually the same attorney that Miss Childress Claiborne had for like one hearing in the prior case that we watched. And I just want to say that I think he is a prime example of what is wrong with divorces today. They don't have to be nasty. They don't. They shouldn't be. They should not be personal attacks and nasty. That is my personal opinion. Here we go.
Let me give you an opening. It might give you a little illumination of why
I read through the file real quickly, but that was before I realized it was actually legitimately set for today. So.
Right. What happened in this case, Judge? The Smarts got divorced, and they entered a joint parenting plan, and it was an equal time agreement. And at that time, Ms. Smart was stationed in Korea. She was in the military, and they had signed off on a plan where she'd come back and they were going to both move back to Tennessee after her time in the military. Well, as things do in life, circumstances have changed, and Ms. Smart has, in the interim got, stationed in Idaho, and I believe she's wanting to then relocate for the military to Alaska. And yeah, she's met somebody, I think, in the interim, and her plans now are to get remarried and move to Ohio after her new husband's time in the military would be up. Which brings us to the problem that, effectively now we have a parenting plan that was laid down that is unworkable at this point. We have a plan where the parties had agreed, hey, we're going to move back to Tennessee, we're going to live close together, we're going to share the parenting duties equally and the time equally. And that is what's brought us here today, Judge. And in my opinion, for what it's worth, is given the circumstances and the clearly change of circumstances, we're going to have to probably do a new best interest analysis in this case and work through with the upcoming changes that are going to happen. We're going to have to work through a new parenting plan.
All right. Mr. Sanders, you wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll only respond to a couple of the things that Mr. Baker said. Ms. Smart, she is remarried. She is not planning to remarry. She is remarried. Ms. Smart is currently in the military stationed in Idaho, Your Honor. She has been there since returning from South Korea. The children resided in Idaho with Ms. Smart from the time she returned from South Korea until a few weeks ago when they began a summertime visitation schedule with their father, where they are now. Ms. Smart's current military contract expires or ends on June the 30th of this year. So come June the 30th, she will no longer be in the military in any capacity. Ms. Smart has remarried. Her husband is active duty military, currently stationed in Alaska, which is the location of the location where she sent notice that she was intending to relocate with the children to Mr. Smart. A couple of things, Your Honor, about the parenting plan and the proof. We can get into that, but if the court looks at the parenting plan that was signed.
Is the rule requested? I don't know that there are any other witnesses.
I only have my client. I don't
Do you have
know.
any other witnesses?
Only have my client, and if something comes up, the only other potential witness I might have would have to testify by Zoom, so I don't know that we have.
I know we have other folks in the courtroom. I didn't want to, normally the rule has to be requested before opening statements. Go ahead.
And, Your Honor, the parties, my client was unrepresented when they did their divorce, when the divorce was finalized. Mr. Smart was represented by Mr. Baker's office. It was an uncontested divorce. And as I laid out in my motion, there is language in the party's parenting plan under the day-to-day schedule. And it says in relevant part, father shall have the children on a weekly basis until mother returns to the States from South Korea. Mother will have equal visitation when on military leave. Mother and father agree to a week-to-week split on visitation. The parties agree to an equal split on visitation, alternating weeks, once both parties live in Tennessee after the mother is out of the military. If father chooses to move to a state other than Tennessee, as the children grow older, it is agreed that the equal visitation will still apply, with the children staying with the mother during the school year, and the father will have split holidays and summer vacation. Father bought a home and currently resides in the state of South Carolina. Mother currently resides in Idaho and has no intention of returning to Tennessee. So part of our position is that the very scenario before the court today was one that was contemplated by the parties at the time they executed a parenting plan, which essentially says, if father doesn't live here, then the children will reside with the mother during the school year, and with the father having holidays and visitations as we can. So that is exactly what we're asking the court to do today, is follow the terms of the parenting plan executed and signed by the parties, to allow mother to relocate to live with her husband, where he's stationed in Alaska, and provide that father would have obviously the majority of the breaks and holidays and different things from school, and then the court would of course have to decide what that does to support as far as that transportation cost that would obviously be incurred for the children. In this case, father has filed with the court on two separate occasions. He's filed his proposed parenting plan. The first proposed parenting plan that he filed originally, when mother filed her petition for her petition to modify, spelled out basically what I'm asking the court to do, that she would be the children would live with her during the school year and with him on the holidays. And then I think following the relocation issue popping up, father's proposed parenting plan changed to essentially make him primary and make her the visiting parent. So what we're asking the court today, to be clear, is that she be permitted to relocate with the children to Elson Air Force Base in Alaska, where her current husband is stationed active duty, and that the court put down a visitation schedule in line with that. I think the parties.
Neither of them live in Tennessee.
Neither live in
Haven't
Tennessee.
for some time. And he lives in South Carolina. She lives presently in Idaho. The children primarily have been living in Idaho, at least until the summer. So I need to transfer this to Idaho then?
Well, I don't know about that. And after June the 30th, nobody's going to be living in Idaho because her current term ends on June the 30th. She's been there a little over a year now because when she came home from South Korea, she was assigned by the military to Idaho, and she left and went there with the children.
It was somewhat of a facetious statement on my part.
I understand.
Just simply pointing out that the only reason they're here is because no other state has assumed jurisdiction over these children, and therefore it falls again to me to have to make this decision. So.
But, Your Honor, our position is outlined in our motion. Procedural history, for the most part, is there as well. But that's what we're asking the court to do today.
Mr. Becker, you may call your first witness.
Judge, I'll call Mr. Smart to stand.
Please raise your right hand.
So, swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Gotcha. Smart, if you would, state your name for the record, please.
Ashley Smart.
All right, and you have 2 children with Mr. Wade Smart?
Yes, sir.
All right, and they're Wyatt and Adeline, if I remember correct.
Adeline.
Y'all call her Annie?
We do.
Okay, and why do you call him WT?
I personally don't.
Okay,
His dad gave him that nickname when he was young.
gotcha. And how old's Wyatt now?
Wyatt's 9.
And Adeline's how old?
Adeline's 4.
She's 4. And I want to take you back. Do you recall when you entered into this divorce agreement with Mr. Smart, with your former husband?
Yes, sir.
All right. And do you remember at that time, Mr. Sanders said you didn't have advice of counsel, but you contacted and worked with the JAG in Korea on getting these papers executed and back and so forth, correct?
No, they would not allow. So the way the military works is if it's already in legal hands, and since it wasn't contested, they don't really touch it. They can give me advice. I use their office to get stuff stamped,
Right.
but to my knowledge, I have not had any kind of legal representation.
Well, I'm not saying that they were your official attorney of record. What I'm saying is they kind of helped you through this process.
No, sir. I seen them one time and I asked them how to start it,
Okay, gotcha.
and I used them to stamp the paperwork.
Okay. But at this time, you had went through this paperwork, correct? You had read the paperwork and you had talked with your husband, your then husband, about what the agreement was, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, Section J, do you remember what's in Section J?
No, sir, I don't have a copy.
All right.
Section J of what, the divorce decree or?
Of the parenting plan. And I'll read it to kind of refresh your memory. Father shall have primary physical custody of the party's minor children until mother returns to the States from South Korea. And we all agree, I don't think there's any dispute, that your husband, Mr. Smart, kept the kids for your entire deployment in Korea, correct?
He worked and lived with his parents, so he had help with it, but yes, the
Okay.
kids lived in the household with his parents with him.
All right. And you acknowledge you were deployed at the time of the parenting plan. I mean, it's written in here. And father understands he's the primary caregiver during the time mother is deployed in South Korea. And then it goes on, when mom is discharged or stationed close to the father before discharge, this agreement for equal time parenting is in effect.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it was supposed to be an equal time agreement anytime you got back from Korea.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So it was supposed to be an equal time agreement anytime you were back from Korea.
From what my knowledge was with that is, I get a mid-tour, so it's up to 30 days leave when you're stationed overseas. So I came home for 14 days.
Yep.
So that's when I got to see the kids in that time frame.
And you went to South Carolina to see the kids, if I remember correctly. Is
That was
correct?
my home of record, or not home of record, but that's where my address was as well.
With your then ex-husband,
Yes.
Okay.
No,
or somewhere in that time. It was
we were still
about-
married.
Gotcha. All right, and then it goes on, the special provision placing the children in father's care and custody is meant only to be temporary until the end of mother's service in South Korea.
Yes.
when mom is on leave, mom shall have equal parenting time with the children, correct?
Yes.
And have you done anything to go back to equal time once you took the kids back to Idaho?
He was given the option when when I came back from Korea, that he was allowed to move to Idaho. We were still married at the time. The military moves you for free, and I gave him that option.
So were you saying that you were gracious enough to give him permission to move to Idaho?
It's not gracious, it's to help my children and us co-parent like we agreed on.
But you had agreed to put in for a transfer to close to South Carolina when you that was the initial plan.
That's not how the military works. I put in for South Carolina. There's 2 bases there. There's Charleston and Shaw. Shaw would be closer, 45 minutes. There's a listing you have to play off of when you're overseas. So I had no control over that.
But
I did put in for that.
Correct. You put in to get back close to where your kids and then what was going to be ex-husband was at, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, the military threw a wrench in that. All right. So we agree that this plan failed because of the military, right?
Before we were fully approved with the divorce, it was filed February 7th. Divorce was finalized May 10th. I had known I was going to Idaho. I had relayed that to him and his parents that we got orders to Ohio.
Okay.
Or not Ohio, Idaho, sorry.
All right. And why would you think that he would still not have equal time just because you got deployed to a place neither one of you anticipated?
I'm not understanding your question.
Well, why are you saying because you got deployed to Idaho?
I didn't get deployed, I PCS'd.
Well, PCS'd.
Yes, sir.
And when you got sent to Idaho, did you think that just abrogated your husband's equal time agreement with the kids?
What we agreed on is that during the school year, I would have the children during summers and some of the vacations, like split vacations, it says it correctly in there, that we would split holidays. He was given the option to move to Idaho free. He chose to stay back. He didn't have a job. He didn't have a house. He found a 1-bedroom shed he decided to rent out. But I gave him the option to continue and work with him to do the 50-50, 110%. Gave him the option. I just told him when we get up there, you're going to have to find a job and a place since we're not going to be married anymore.
Well, how is that you facilitated 50-50 when he tried to come see the kids and you tried to block that?
That is, I didn't try to block it, but he had told me that weekend, I believe it was a Monday when he said he was coming for spring break, which was 2 weeks before spring break, and we had already made plans. He had stated he didn't have the funds to come to our son's birthday, which was that weekend. He said he just couldn't make it happen. So then my son mentioned something about his now dad, my husband, automatically. He was like, I have funds. I want to come this day, this day, and this day. And there's text messages stating where I clearly stated I don't think it's a good idea because I was married to him for 8 years. I know how he is with his money. And he's not bad with his money, but he does not understand it's better to wait and save money so where you for sure have it rather than to invest in something and hope that it sells later down the road, if that makes sense. So I encouraged him. I said, I don't believe it's a good timing that he's going to get them at the end of May because I knew how much tickets cost. I flew with my children to Kentucky for my brother's wedding that September. So I had an idea of how much tickets were going to cost.
You didn't relent on any type of contact with your ex-husband until you were threatened with a contempt petition from our office, if I recall correctly.
I'm not understanding what
We sent your then attorney, Ms. Jackson, we told her we were going to file contempt charges if you didn't start letting Mr. Smart see the kids.
To my knowledge, it was through text messages with me and Wade about him coming. That's all I knew. And then he filed contempt, false contempt, pretty much, that I was out of the military or I re-enlisted and chose to go to Idaho, which is false.
Okay. Look, let me go back to the Tennessee move. Now, when you originally entered this plan, we all agree that the plan was, hey, we're going to move back to Tennessee, we're going to share equal time, and that's in the best interest of the kids.
Yes, sir. That's what we agreed on.
All right. So the plan, you're not able to follow through with that plan.
Well, the moment he bought a house in December, I decided, because we bought a house before we know the legal requirements and stuff, he pretty much settled in South Carolina. I got married in February. In February is when I spoke with my husband, because the military was going to station me for 3 years up in Alaska if I stayed in with my husband. The government will move me and the family to Alaska. So we both agreed to help this case, and then my husband's supposed to retire next year, and Ohio is the plan. Instead of staying in longer in Alaska, we would get the 1 year over or 1 year and some, and then settle closer.
All right. But Mr. Smarts, most of his family is from South Carolina.
To my knowledge, yes, sir.
And he has you would agree, a big support network there in South Carolina.
No, sir, I do not agree.
Well, who housed your children and Mr. Smart while you was in Korea?
His parents.
All right, so that's not a support network?
It isn't when he keeps our children from his parents, because his parents have contact with me.
Well, what about your parents? Let's talk about your parents'
Okay.
ability. Is your mother a felon?
She is. So
What is
is
she-
both his parents, though.
What did your mother do?
My mother was in a car wreck back in 2008. That took the lives of two 16-year-old girls.
And she was intoxicated at that time, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you would agree that's not a good family support network for these kids, correct?
My mother lives in Wisconsin with her husband, not in Tennessee.
And not in Idaho either.
No, sir.
What family do you have in Idaho?
I don't. I have my military family that I built over the year.
What family do you have in Alaska other than your new husband?
Military family that I've built over my 4 years.
What family do you have in Ohio other than your husband?
My husband's family.
Okay. So you have no blood relatives in any of these 3 states you propose to move these children to?
I have a support system that will help with their mental, physical, emotional, and social skills. So I believe I have a good support system wherever we go. That's the part of being in the military.
Explain to me how that's in the best interest of the kids to move them to Idaho, then to Alaska, and then to Ohio. All 3 places where there is no network of support.
There is a network of support.
So you think it's good to move children and disrupt their schooling and extracurricular activities and everything they have just to cater to mom's plans?
That's where I think a lot of people misjudge the military. It makes kids stronger, more resilient, outgoing. If you've met my children, you will agree, Wade can agree, our children are awesome. They're great kids, they learn fast, they make friends, they're very outgoing. And that's not because they sit in one school, it's because they have a different variety of people.
So stability doesn't play into your equation for these children.
They have stability.
By moving to Idaho,
They have
Alaska.
stability by being with a parent that loves them, that cares for them. I'm sure Wade does as well, but it's,
When you have that, every factor you just enumerated also applies to your husband. Plus the fact he's not moving
I disagree. He doesn't have the support system that he says he has.
Okay. Well, you do agree that he has family in South Carolina.
I do, and both his sides of his parents are felons as well.
All right. Well, who cared for the children at the time you were in Korea? Who did the majority of the parenting?
Actually, his stepmother,
Were you there? How do you know that?
because when I call my kids daily. In Korea, I tried doing it twice daily. Wade worked. He had them in childcare when he didn't work, or when he worked, and some days when he didn't work. And then they would be at his mother's house when he wanted to go out, and then they would be with Shell and Todd when he wanted to go out. There was instances where he would just leave. They had told me he left them one night and didn't tell them that he left. So if anything would have happened in the house, they wouldn't have known the kids were there because they were sleeping.
How do you know that?
Because word of mouth from his mother-in-law. or his
Hearsay,
mother.
correct?
I believe so.
You don't have any information that that actually happened?
I have a word, just
Okay.
like I thought I had with Wade.
Okay. Now, your intentions to move back to Tennessee changed when you got or met this new person that's now your husband, correct?
When I got married, yes, sir.
All right. So that decision was made based on your personal life decisions to get remarried.
It was based on what benefits it would help our family with as well. Yes, it would provide a two-parent household, but it would it helps with medical for the remainder of the kids' years until they're 18 to 25. It helps with multiple things. It's not just a marriage out of conveniency for me.
You don't seem to care about the contact between the kids and their father. Every plan you made alienates the father.
It does not, no, sir. He was offered the opportunity to move with the kids. He chose not to.
You want him to move to a place where he has no job, no housing. You were going to be divorced and no family there.
He did not have.
Explain to me how that would be a good idea.
He didn't have half of that where he was as well.
He had a roof over his head, he had food, and he had a family all around him, did he not?
His parents were kicking him out when we left because of the way he acted and treated. You can smile, but that's what happened.
Well, it worked out pretty good. He now has a house, correct?
He bought a house in December, yes.
Do you own a house?
No, sir.
All right, so who worked out better in that equation, South Carolina or Idaho?
Well, it depends.
What do you mean it depends?
It just depends on what you know and what you don't know, I guess, but it's hearsay.
All right, so you're not willing now to move back to Tennessee.
No, sir.
So you've done the breach of the agreement, correct?
No, sir.
Well, if not, that's the plan. The way I read it is you and Mr. Smart were going to move back to Tennessee, live in close proximity, and co-parent and raise the kids. And you've now decided to get married, and I don't want to do that anymore. And Mr. Smart has to pay the cost for it. Isn't that correct?
No, sir. What is correct is we agreed that Tennessee should be our home when I got out. Obviously, things changed because he bought a house in December, setting up residency in South Carolina. And I got married in February, so of course my plans change. I don't plan on I hope I don't have to live away from my husband, but I would love the opportunity to raise my children with my new husband.
Did you sign the parenting plan?
Yes,
Did
sir.
you identify that signature?
Yes, sir.
Can you read that statement there? I certify under penalties of perjury,
Where is it? Oh,
right above your signature. Read it out loud.
it says under penalty of perjury, we declare that this plan has been proposed in good faith and is under the best interests of each minor children or child, that the statements herein and on the attached child support worksheets are true and correct. A notary public is required for this proposed plan by one parent. A notary public is required if this is agreed by, planned by both parents.
Now, at the time you signed that, when you didn't have a soon-to-be husband, this was in the best interest of the children, was it not? Or did you lie when you signed that?
I didn't lie, but it was in the best interest at the time for the children, and both Wade and I.
What's the only thing that changed is you found a new husband? Is that not correct? Yes or no?
The thing that changed is Wade bought a house, so I assumed he was setting residency up in there, staying there, and then I got married. Yes, I got a new husband.
He bought the house after you filed the petition.
After I filed the petition because he was not supporting the kids all year. When I asked,
You didn't pay a dime in child support when you were in Korea, did you?
I sent his mom $700 a month, and I sent our joint account $792 a month, which he should have records of that. It's his account still.
All right.
So that's $1,492 monthly.
All right, so we can agree that Mr. Wade did all the parenting when you was in Korea. There's no dispute there.
I do not agree that he did all the parenting. I agree that he lived in a house with his parents with the children.
Let me ask this another way. How much parenting did you do in Korea?
I tried my
Zero?
best. I tried my best to do as much as I could.
Did you take them to school?
No, sir.
Did you take them to any medical appointments?
No, sir.
Did you tuck them into bed?
No, sir. Not
Then how much
physically.
parenting did you do?
The most I could.
Which was none from Korea.
Objection, Your Honor.
Ms. Dane's question is argumentative.
All right, so at that point in time, then he comes back and Mr. Wade said, hey, kids and the mom's been apart a long time. They need to reconnect. Is that not what happened?
What happened was we both agreed together that since I had follow-on orders, which he knows, he was in the military, he knows how this works, how a 4-year contract works, that I was going to Idaho with the children. He agreed that they should be with me during the school year, which he signed this parenting plan as well, which states that. And he agreed that he would get them every holiday split, which he did not ask for or came. And then he came a total of 5 days. He's seen the kids a total of 5 days in that year.
You're reading that into the plan. The plan says you're going to come back and live close to him in Tennessee.
Objection, Your Honor. That's exactly not what the parenting plan says.
All right.
Plan says the following. He will be the primary caregiver during the time the mother is deployed in South Korea. When the mom is discharged or stationed close to the father before discharge, this agreement for equal time parenting is in effect. Special provision placing the children in father's care and custody is meant to only be temporary until the end of mother's service in South Korea. When mom is on leave, the mom shall have equal time parenting time with the children. Father currently lives in South Carolina. Mother is currently stationed in South Korea. Once the mother is out of the Air Force, she plans to reside in Tennessee. Father plans to relocate to Tennessee with the children when the mother's out of the military. Mother and father agree to a week-to-week split on visitation once both live in Tennessee. If mother or father chooses to move to a state other than Tennessee as the children grow older, it is agreed that the equal visitation will still apply, with the children staying with the mother during the school year, and the father shall have holidays and summer visitation.
I'm sorry, why are we here again? Because all we're talking about is her move to Alaska, and that just specifically said the mother can move to another state. The father can move to another state, and then they have equal visitation with the father getting the kids on holidays. So all he should be talking about and trying to prove, talking about the attorney, is that she withheld the children from him. And he's talking about everything but that. He's talking about the husband and her mother, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you're putting so much stress in hurting a person so bad for what? Because you don't like what they're doing? Well, you entered into an agreement. You entered into the child custody agreement that says she can move to another state. End of story. Quit wasting the court's time.
That's the plan that we're doing.
Okay, so you're getting out of the military, what, this month?
Yes, sir. The 30th.
All right. Are you moving to Tennessee as this plan says?
It depends on what the court says. I have not made any action to do anything until I get what the court says, because by law, I'm supposed to follow the 15-mile rule.
All right. Are you still willing to move to Tennessee to carry out this plan?
My husband is stationed in Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska, and I would love to move there.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you the question again. Are you going to move to Tennessee to carry out this plan when you get out of the military? Yes or no?
If a judge makes me move to Tennessee, then yes. But if not, then if he deems it acceptable to move with my husband, then I would live in Alaska.
All right. But you're wanting to breach the agreement. Is that a fair statement?
Objection, Your Honor. This categorization.
It is an interpretation of, your interpretation of the agreement is perhaps different than her interpretation, but your characterization of her wanting to breach the agreement calls for a legal conclusion on her part. Sustain the objection.
Gotcha. All right. Now, at that point in time, we have a moment, Judge.
You may.
Smart. Now I want to go back. On to a different topic.
Sir.
Now, tell me what involvement you've told the kids about this case.
I have a 9-year-old son that is.
Marty, you need a break.
No, sir. It will just get worse. I have a 9-year-old son that is a highly intelligent little boy who has sonic hearing, and also I do not lie to my children. So he has asked me certain questions about, say, Alaska, like what we do in Alaska or other places, and I tell him, well, we cannot do anything until court. We cannot do anything until a judge says what we can do. Because I'm not lying to him and telling him all this good stuff, enticing him, and then turns out we can't do it. Does that make sense?
You've not already told them they're moving to Alaska?
No, sir. I told them, and he actually told me on Father's Day that I ruined his Father's Day because I had mentioned something. I think I was at my grandmother's house, and he asked me, why are you there? And I pretty much told him, I was like, we have court. And he got mad at me for telling our son we had court because he had told our son that he had a business trip or something.
Well, why would you put a 9-year-old in the middle of a divorce case?
Why would you lie to a 9-year-old and entice him and make him wonder why we can't move to Alaska? I didn't tell him everything and anything about anything that we go through. He just knows the final decision of where we move is on this court.
Well, what do you think about a 9-year-old's expectations if you tell him something and then it doesn't happen?
Exactly. That's why I didn't tell him. I told him whatever the judge deems fit is what we're going to have to do because that's what happens. You follow the law.
Well, why would it be good to tell a child anything about a custody case? Why would you put a child in the middle of that adult issue?
It's not putting a child, when a child has a question, you answer them honestly. You don't lie, you don't fluff it, you point blank. I told him we have to go to court to figure out what we're doing.
Okay. Well, is there any dispute that Mr. Smart took care of the kids while you were in Korea?
Asked and
It's
answered.
hearsay.
Asked and answered, Judge.
All right. So, is there any dispute that the kids love their father?
No, sir. They love their dad.
And they have a great emotional connection to their father, don't they?
I disagree.
He coaches their baseball team and so forth.
He pushes our son to play a sport and neglects our daughter.
And based on what? How do you get that conclusion?
Again, you're going to say hearsay, but based on people that are on a team with him when my son played baseball. You have my 3-year-old daughter running around the baseball field while he's coaching. No one's watching her. And then you have my son getting ran to death and stuff when he does stuff wrong.
Well, if you've got 2 kids and one plays that sport and one don't, they both can't be out there playing at the same time.
Exactly. Where's the support to watch my daughter while he's coaching?
Well,
He says he has support. Where is it?
did you witness any of this take place?
When I came home from mid-tour, I witnessed a couple things.
So you wasn't watching the kids. Is that what you're telling me?
While I was in Korea, no, sir.
Okay.
When I came home from mid-tour, in the middle of my Korea term, I did witness some of it.
All right. And now you've stated that your husband's working, correct?
Now he is, yes. He has, I believe, a full-time job.
So he doesn't have any problems providing for the children, does he?
To my knowledge, no.
All right. Well, tell me why it would be in the children's best interest to uproot them from their anchor home.
Exactly. I've had them for a year. I've done everything for them by myself for a year. That is their anchored home.
Yeah, and you didn't follow the parenting plan on
I
equal
did.
time.
I followed the parenting plan to a T. I'm not out of the service yet, so that is something foreseen. And like we spoke about, things that hasn't happened yet, things can go differently, and that obviously is what happened when he bought a house.
Well, you see the problem that's created with the distance. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Do you agree?
I agree that we are in a distance. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and Idaho is not an easy place to get to from Nashville Airport.
It is.
Yeah, if you fly to Denver or some other place, there is no direct flight to Idaho.
Most flights, sir, there's no direct flight. You get one or two stops.
It's a pretty lengthy flight, is it not?
Not too bad. It depends on how much money you have.
How much do you think the kids need to fly first class? Do we have those resources?
No, why would they need to fly first class?
I don't know. You said it's a matter of money.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, because those flights are expensive.
I'm talking about direct flights and indirect flights, sir.
Give me an example of how much those flights are.
When I flew home from Idaho to my brother's wedding, I believe it was like $800 for 3 people.
800 for 3 one way or both ways?
Both ways.
All right. And is that the only time you flew?
From Idaho to Tennessee, yes, sir.
Okay. How long did that take you?
I can't give you an exact number.
Was there a big layover?
I don't believe so.
Did you change airports?
I'm sure.
You sure you don't remember?
I'm sure I don't remember the time frame, sir.
Okay. When was that you flew back?
I believe my brother got married in September, so I believe it was in September of last year.
All right, and Judge Babylon,
I want to make sure that we all establish a timeline in this case, specifically, more so for the court who may not be familiar with this as us. You all were divorced in May of 2022, is that correct?
Apologies, sir.
But you all signed divorce papers that were filed with the court in February of 2022, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, at the time that you signed the divorce papers, were you stationed in South Korea?
Yes, sir.
And what was the term that you were in South Korea? What was the time period?
From April 5th, 2021 to the 21st of April, 2022.
And so when you all signed these papers, obviously both of you knew that you're in South Korea and he's in the state, he's stateside.
Yes, sir.
Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
When did you get back into the United States from Korea?
The 21st of April,
Of what year?
2022.
Okay. And where did you go when you arrived in America?
I went straight to South Carolina to his parents' house where they were staying.
And did you stay there for a little while?
Yes, sir. We had to move our stuff, so it was probably like a week.
And the military had given you, and I don't know the military terms. I know it's not deployment. You corrected Mr. Baker, but you had received your next assignment.
Yes, sir.
And that assignment took you where?
It took me to Mountain Home, Idaho.
And you mentioned you had previously provided a list of places where you would like to be placed.
Yes, sir.
But the military assigned you as they
Need you.
chose.
Yes, sir.
And you were assigned to Idaho.
Yes, sir.
And that was in end of April, beginning of May of last year. Is that right?
When they assigned me or when I went?
When you went.
When I went, yes, sir.
Okay. And so, did you and Mr. Smart, when you arrived at South Carolina home from South Korea, did you and Mr. Smart have a conversation about where you were going?
Yes.
And what did you tell him?
I told him, like I told Mr. Baker, that I have orders, which he knew when I got the orders while I was in South Korea, that the plan was to move to Idaho. I gave him the option to come with us because, again, we were still married at the time. He can travel with us, and it's all free on the military. And
Let me stop you for a second. When did you receive the Idaho assignment?
normally it's 6 months in, so 6 months in Korea. So October, November timeframe.
So in October, November of 2021, the military tells you that when you get back to America, you're going to be in Idaho.
Yes,
Did you immediately communicate that to Mr.
I
Smart?
did. Yes, I did.
Okay. And so now it's April, end of April, beginning of May 2022. You're at his parents' home in South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Was he still living there?
He was in the transitioning to move because they told him he couldn't stay there.
But was he living there when you got there?
Yes, sir.
Physically under their roof?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was he working?
To my knowledge, he had a job in the little town part-time.
And you left and took the children and went to Idaho.
Yes, sir.
Did you and Mr. Smart talk about the fact that you were leaving and taking the children to Idaho?
Yes, sir.
Did he know you were leaving and taking the children to Idaho?
Yes, sir.
Did he consent to you going?
He did not give me any indication that he didn't agree with the kids going with me during the school year, like we agreed in the paperwork.
Okay. And did you indeed go to Idaho?
Yes, sir. We went straight to Idaho.
And you moved into your military housing?
Yes, sir. On the 6th or 9th of May.
And did you then, I'm assuming after that summer, enroll the children
Yes, sir.
in school in Idaho on the base?
Yes, sir.
I get one child, or you only have one in school, correct?
When Wyatt, he was enrolled in 3rd grade. Addie was enrolled in the CDC, which is like pre-K daycare on base.
And you're still in Idaho, but you've been there for a little bit more than a year now, about a year and a month. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the children have been with you the whole time?
Yes, sir.
And during the time that you were in Idaho, how many times did Mr. Smart travel out and visit with the children?
To Idaho one time.
Good.
The end of March.
End of March?
Yes, sir.
Okay. During the time that the children were with you in Idaho, has Mr. Smart provided any type of monetary support
No, sir.
with the children at all?
No, sir.
Anything with, do they have uncovered medical bills with their military insurance?
We have to, it depends on what it is. So our son has inserts in his shoes because his ankles bow down. Stuff like that they do not cover, so that would be out of pocket. But medical-wise, if you're active duty, they cover it 100%. And then dental, we pay for dental.
Have there been any of those things that insurance didn't pay for during
Yes.
this past year?
Yes, sir.
Have you asked Mr. Smart about helping with those things?
I did. I asked him to split it with me because that's what we agreed on as parents.
I want to ask a
Yes.
question of clarification to make sure I'm understanding. The original parenting plan, if I understand correctly, orders child support to be paid by the father to the mother, $280 per month. And it goes on to talk about it, the deviation. The reason for the deviation is the mother is deployed overseas with the military. Father, who is retired military, has been operating under the current situation during the wife's deployment. Both parties wish to maintain the current situation until the end of the wife's military service. Presumptive amount of child support without the deviation of $280. According to what I just read, he is the one who has been ordered to pay child support to her, correct?
That's
Even
what-
when she was on active duty.
Correct.
All right, I just want to make sure that's what I was reading.
How did your children this past year where they've been with you on the base out in Idaho? How did they enjoy themselves?
They loved it.
I'm assuming there are obviously other children.
Yes, sir. So when you move into a military neighborhood, it's pretty much like a cul-de-sac. There's kids everywhere. That's all you do in the military, spouse-wise. You just have babies. So they had a plethora of children they grew up with in that year frame. We'd have cookouts. We'd go to sports together. We'd do multiple things with other families.
Now, your son just finished the 3rd grade.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Did he attend 2nd grade in South Carolina
Yes, sir.
while you were overseas?
Yes, sir.
Where did he attend 1st grade?
We were in Montana, stationed in Montana.
And where did he complete kindergarten?
Kindergarten was, I believe he went in South Carolina because I went through basic. He went through part of it in South Carolina and then the rest in Montana.
He attended kindergarten on base in South Carolina?
No, it's
public school?
Public school, and then even in Montana, the school was right outside of base.
So you went to basic training in South Carolina, and then you all got moved to Montana?
I went to basic training while they were in South Carolina. My basic training was in San Antonio, Texas for 2 months, and then I went to tech school, and then we were stationed in Montana.
So safe to say that your children they've seen a lot of the country already.
Yes, sir.
They've lived in South Carolina, Idaho, Montana,
Tennessee.
and Tennessee briefly.
Yes, sir.
Now, you remarried. When did you and your husband get married?
The 16th of February, 2023.
And he's in the military?
Yes, sir.
Is that how the two of you met?
Yes, sir.
And how long did you all know each other before you married?
I knew him as a person. I met him and others in Korea, and then we started dating in June of this past year.
June of 2022?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how long has he been in active duty in the military?
It'll be 19 years in August.
And he's stationed in Alaska?
Yes, sir.
What does he do?
He's a vehicle maintenance. Mechanic.
He works on different types of vehicles and machines
Yes, sir.
for the military. You're in the Air Force?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is he planning to retire
Yes, sir.
after 20 years?
Yes, sir.
You signed a 4-year contract with the military, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when does that current 4-year contract expire?
June 30th, 2023.
After June the 30th of 2023, which is about 7 days away, what is your status with the military?
I am honorably discharged.
Will you have any connection to the military after that?
I will, your service to your country when you sign up is 8 years. So I'll be inactive for 4 years, where if anything huge pops off, they'll do that. But they also take other things in consideration before they pull people.
You say pops off, are you talking about like if China decided to invade or
Yes.
something along those lines?
If someone invades here.
Okay. Now, you are aware that your husband, they filed a motion for civil contempt against you.
Yes, sir.
You and I have talked about that. Are you aware of that motion?
Yes, sir.
And as best I can tell, the allegation is that you're in contempt for not moving back to Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
It also goes on to lay out that you re-enlisted with the military without conferring with the father and is now stationed in Idaho. Have you ever re-enlisted with the military?
No, sir.
Have you ever extended anything beyond your original 4-year commitment?
No, sir. July 1st, 2019 to June 30th of 2023 is a 4-year contract that I will complete the end of this month.
And to the best of your knowledge, Mr. Smart, your ex-husband, has purchased a home in South Carolina,
Yes, sir.
and that's where he lives.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if he lives with anyone?
He has a girlfriend, a live-in girlfriend.
And to your knowledge, he has a job there?
To my knowledge, yes.
Where are your children right now?
They are in South Carolina with his girlfriend.
And when did the children leave Idaho to be with their father?
The 26th of May is when they got on the plane with him and traveled.
Did Mr. Smart flew to where you were?
Yes, sir.
You met him there with the children, and he flew back home?
Yes, sir.
And he's having summertime visitation right now?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness? Smart, I'm going to hand you a document here and ask if you're able to identify that document for me.
Yes, sir. This is the calendar school year for the district school office in Alaska.
So that is where your children would attend school if you were permitted to relocate with them.
Yes, sir.
And it outlines when they start school, when they get out of school, when they have a break, and different things.
Yes, sir.
Just to hit a couple of the high points, when does the school year start in Alaska?
It starts the 17th of August.
Okay. 'Cause that's a little bit later than us, but that's when they start there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when does it finish?
It finishes on the 17th of May.
Okay. So they start a little later, but they get out maybe a little earlier too. Looking at that schedule there, what are other than the normal holidays and things like that, they get a kind of a standard break for Christmas,
Yes, sir.
a couple of weeks there. It looks like they also have a spring break.
I'm going to object to her testifying this. I mean, one of the documents here say it speaks for itself. Her trying to interpret this hearsay document, I think, is a little overboard here. I mean, if he wants to move it into evidence, that's what it is.
I'm only doing it because when I looked at it on my computer, it was color coded and easily viewed. And when I printed it, it's maybe not as much, but I will be happy to move it into evidence as an exhibit to her testimony. I was just having her point out what breaks were there and what breaks, were not there. But I'm happy to tender it as an exhibit to her testimony. And
He's happy to tender it as an exhibit to her testimony.
As long as we're not explaining the hearsay document as an expert in whatever this is, but I have no problem moving it in.
Let's mark this as the next exhibit. I guess it's the first exhibit, isn't it? And for the record, this is a statement of the school where the children, what is it exactly?
it's a school calendar
School calendar.
where the children will attend school if they're permitted to relocate with the mother. You can pass it up to the court.
Mark it as exhibit. And are you finished asking her about it?
I am. Now, Ms. Smart, let's be clear. You're asking this court to relocate to Alaska.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
You want to live with your husband
Yes, sir.
while he finishes out his term with the military.
With my children,
With
yes,
your
sir.
children. Now, you all, Mr. Baker went through your parenting plan with you, and you both signed it, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you both swore that it was in their best interest.
Yes, sir.
And that was February of 2022, when you signed it, confirmed by this court by final decree in May of 2022, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in it, both of you state under oath that if the father chooses to move to a state other than Tennessee, it is agreed that the equal visitation will still apply, with the children staying with the mother during the school year, and father will have split holidays and summer vacation.
Yes, sir.
You both swore to that, under oath, that that was in the children's best interest. So that's true, correct? The father does not live here. He does not live in Tennessee.
No, sir.
In fact, when is the last time that the father has lived in Tennessee?
Before the military, prior to military, so 2018, or 2019. I joined July 1st. That's when I left, so.
So in excess of some 3 years now, he's not lived here.
Yes, sir.
And when's the last time that you've lived in Tennessee?
The same amount of time.
Same amount of time. Now, as far as splitting holidays and summer vacation with Mr. Smart, what is it that you think would be appropriate and in your children's best interest?
I discussed with him, since they're with me, a week before school and a week after school.
That they would stay with you for 1 week after school is dismissed, and then they would come back to you 1 week before it resumes,
Yes,
and
sir.
everything in the middle that he would have?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In the
What-
parenting plan, it states that we split the summer.
And then what about holidays? Do you have a thought as to what that would look like? How to split holidays with Mr. Smart?
In our original parenting plan, it just says we split 50-50, but it would make more sense for like Christmas holiday, that's 2 weeks long, that would make sense. But for like spring break, maybe every other year, like split it like that.
You're talking about the longer holidays versus
Yes.
2 or 3 days? And do you think that is in their best interest?
I do.
Is that what you thought was in their best interest when this very plan was signed by both of you?
Yes, sir.
And would you like for there to be, for Mr. Smart to provide you with some support for the minor children,
Yes, sir.
and financial support?
Yes, sir.
That's all I have right now, Your Honor.
Be direct, Mr. Baker.
Ms. Smart, it would be fair for you to pay for the transportation costs from Alaska, wouldn't it?
Me and my husband discussed meeting a halfway point for him with the 2 children.
Oh, in Idaho?
I'm sorry, I can't.
In Idaho?
If we're allotted to go to Alaska. In Idaho, how this worked was he came and got the kids, and I'm going to pick up the kids.
Well, why would it be fair that Mr. Smart would have to pay the transportation costs when you're the one making the decisions to move?
I'm not sure of your question.
Why would it be fair that Mr. Smart would be, you would ask him to pay the transportation costs, but it's your decision to move?
I'm still not understanding, because
How do you justify that?
splitting cost of transportation,
Right.
because we're both 2 grown adults with jobs, and we should be able to split our children's cost of transportation.
But you were a grown adult when you agreed to move back to Tennessee.
That was a future agreement that he obviously wasn't going to withhold, and now I'm married. If the judge allows to move to Alaska, obviously I will not be going back to Tennessee if that is agreed on.
So the only time this plan changed is after you got married.
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
I think that's a fair
Please
question, Judge.
state your question, I'm sorry.
So the only time your intentions changed or your plans changed was after you got married.
Overruled.
My plans changed after he bought a house in South Carolina and set up residency.
That was after you told him, after you filed your petitions.
My petition that I filed was to help him support my children. He had not supported my children, so I contacted Kelly Jackson, and we set up the petition that pretty much stated support and other things that he was failing to do. And he didn't visit at all, so the new parenting plan stated as long as he gave ahead of time, I believe it was 60 days, then we could set up the visitation and stuff.
Didn't visit at all. He didn't visit with them in Kentucky?
He drove to Kentucky for 2 days while I traveled to Kentucky. That's why I said 5 total days last year.
And he went to Idaho out of pocket, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said, your family support. You touched on when Mr. Sanders was asking you about, you went to, I guess, graduated from San Antonio and so forth, and I guess from your basic, or did I understand that correct?
If you're talking about basic training, then yes.
Okay. And Mr. Wade's family showed up for that, took money out of their pocket, went all the way to San Antonio. Any of your family even show up for that?
No, sir.
None.
Why? What is the point of that? You're putting stuff in her head, reminding her of bad things that happened, and messing with her. So let's cause the mom to get upset and have issues. Let's cause her to have mental health issues and have a meltdown and get depressed over the fact that her family sucks. Lots of our families suck. Is it really necessary to sit there and hammer that in her head? She's separated herself from that. It doesn't matter. Don't be such an ass. Oh my God. Hats. Ass hats. Yeah.
No family support, do you?
My family's military. Most of them are spread out and stuff, and they have children of their own. I wouldn't feel obligated to make them spend money just to come see me for 1 day.
Well, it tells me volumes if his family shows up to support you, but your family doesn't. Isn't that a telling tale?
They had the money and convenience of time, I guess. They have no children under their belt. They had, like I said, money and convenience to come see, and I'm grateful they did.
All right, and now you said about the moving. Now, let me see if I got this timeline right, because something is not jiving here.
Yes, sir.
And I'm pretty sure I wrote this down. You said you had a conversation with Mr. Smart about moving.
Yes, sir.
And then you said your plans to move to Idaho were made in October or November of 21.
When I received orders to Idaho, again, they put you where they want you, and then 6 months into my Korea PCS, they gave me Idaho. So me and Wade discussed it.
Well, what's got me really confused, because either I wrote it down wrong or somebody's not got their numbers off or fibbing me. This plan was submitted in December of 12. If you knew that you were going to Idaho in November of 21, how could you possibly say this wasn't in the best interest, because you knew you were moving to Idaho?
I'm not understanding your question.
You testified on direct that you knew of the plans from the military to move to Idaho in October or November of 21. This plan you submitted is in 22.
Which plan are you talking about?
The parenting plan, the file stamp copy. If I've got this right, I don't know, I've got a file stamp of December 22.
12, and that's what was confusing to me. You said it submitted in 12, I thought.
No, 22 for some reason, and I don't know if the stamp's wrong or the time frame's wrong or something.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Your office did it, so I'm not positive on.
Well, I don't work for the Dixon County Clerk and Master's Office.
I meant y'all submitted it with them. That's what I meant.
Right, okay.
The only dates that I know about is February 7th when it was filed, and then the May 10th.
Well, let me get clarification. I'm going to go back over it because now I'm confused.
Yes, sir.
When did you learn you were going to Idaho?
While I was in Korea.
All right, so you knew at the time that you entered this plan that you were going there, but you didn't take any of that into account You were still going to move back to Tennessee when you entered that plan.
I think that's why y'all wrote up the plan the way it is, where when my contract ended, Tennessee was where we were supposed to move.
That's right, and that was the intent of all the parties. You and your then husband.
Before the contract ends, June 30th, 2023, and next week is when the contract ends.
Gotcha. All right, so what I'm getting at is y'all have a plan. You were going to move. You knew you were going to Idaho. And now, because you've met somebody, you just want to change the plan and scrap it because of your unilateral decision.
No, sir. He bought a house in December. He planted residency in South Carolina. I married in February.
You do realize you can own more than one house and sell a house, correct?
Not with the VA, it's kind of hard.
Well, I've done
And even if he didn't use the VA,
I've done
they
two
still
or
look
three
at it.
VAs. It's been pretty easy every
Objection, Your
time I've
Honor.
done it.
Counsel, want to take
I'll
a stand?
rephrase, I'll withdraw it.
This is not a conversation.
Yep. All right. You can get a VA loan, sell a house, and get another one, correct?
Yes, but it dings you if you don't live in it in 2 years, within 2 years.
But it doesn't stop you from getting another one, does it?
It's hard.
It doesn't stop you,
It's
does it?
very hard.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Anything further?
Very brief. Ms. Smart, do you recall when this court signed your divorce decree?
I believe it was the 10th of May.
May the 10th of 2022,
Yes,
correct?
yes, sir.
Where were you on May the 10th of 2022?
I was in Idaho.
And were the children with you?
Yes, sir.
And you had traveled back to the States, got your children from Mr. Smart, left,
Yes, sir.
and were there when this court signed this?
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Smart know that you were in Idaho?
Yes, sir.
Did he know that you had the children?
Yes, sir.
Did you take the children without his consent,
No,
without his
sir.
knowledge,
No, sir.
leaving in the night,
No, sir.
anything along those lines?
No, sir.
Okay.
It was an agreement that the kids would come to me in Idaho for the school year, and then him summer.
Because that's exactly what the parenting plan says.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down.
Thank you.
We'll stand at recess for lunch until 1:30.
Judge, I call Mr. Smart to the stand.
Mr. Smart? Step up, raise your right hand, let me place you under oath. Solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
All right, if you would, state your name for the record, please.
Wade Smart.
Smart, I'm not gonna go back through, you know why we're here, we're talking about this parenting plan. And I'm gonna try to go through the sequence of events that happened. What was your understanding of this parenting plan when you entered the agreement with your then wife?
50-50 custody. We moved back to Tennessee and we raise our youngins.
Pull that microphone towards you so we make sure everybody can hear you.
Yes, Your
The
Honor.
base of that microphone will slide if you just pull it over.
That better?
Well, slide the microphone towards you, and I think you won't have to lean over. There you go.
Oh, pardon me.
All right, so what was your understanding of the plan?
So 50-50.
And start with Korea on.
All right. So, when you say start with Korea on,
Yeah, when your then wife was in Korea, and then you started the divorce proceedings.
okay. So once we started our divorce proceedings, everything was essentially on my shoulders to start. I actually did not want to do it in the first place. I just felt like we could work it out.
So you didn't want to do what? What are you talking about, getting a divorce?
Right. I tried, obviously to try to make it work.
Right.
But it was landing on deaf ears, and there was really no discussion about it.
Yeah.
It was, this is going to happen from her, whether you like it or not. And, you know, obviously everything goes through my brain, my youngins.
And the plan for the children while she was in Korea, what was the intention there?
I'd be raising the youngins.
Okay. And then after she got back from Korea, what's your understanding of what y'all had agreed to?
That she pretty much told me. I didn't really have much say in the matter. It was, I'm going to Idaho. She's going to Idaho. She said, I'm going to Idaho, taking the youngins. And I said, what do I do? I had a decision to make. And it was beating me up the entire time. Just, what do I do? And I was fearful that if I went up there, huge if I go up there, I mean, it's just me and I got no contacts. I just got to, whatever I got to do, you know, I'd be under her thumb, essentially. And the unknown worried me. So I asked her in a text, you know, hey, you going to hold it against me and take the kids and completely break up what I want? She said no. She said no. So I sought counsel, you know. I said, well, what do I do here? And we decided, you know, rent, and when the time comes to her to end her service, we move back to Tennessee. We pick a school district that we like. I get on PTO. We do it week to week, and we raise them the best we can.
When did you get the first indication that, you know, Miss Smart was being transferred to Idaho or reassigned to Idaho? I recall, and you may not recall.
I'd say approximately about a month before she got back.
Okay. And now, who's primarily cared for the children since they were born?
I have.
All right. Explain to the judge, you know, what you did doing the majority of the care, what your responsibilities were, and so forth.
So obviously masculine dad roles, work, provide, protect. But my service to my youngins didn't stop there. I'm a big believer in strong community, and it requires a village to raise a family. So it's always been my dream to bring up my youngins in sports, church, and knowing your neighbor. That got met with some pushback. So I sacrificed.
Who did the day-to-day upbringing of the children, the majority of that during the course of their lives?
Judge, I'm gonna object to anything that may have occurred prior to the parties entering into their permanent parenting plan and subsequent divorce. Anything prior to that would not be relevant.
What's the relevance of information about what took place prior to the execution of the agreement?
Well, under 36-6106, anytime a custody orders are contemplated, we are to evaluate that. So I was anticipating we may need those factors, but I can move on if we're not going to weigh them.
Well, I mean, it's up to you. I just wondered what the relevance was. If you believe it's relevant, then you can put on your proof.
Well, I think it may be relevant depending on, I think it may be irrelevant depending on how the court wants to handle this. If they say, well, look, we're going to have to scrap this, it's not practical, thus that triggers the 106 reweighing of those factors and so forth. Or if we say, oh, there's an anticipatory breach here and we're going to do something else, it would not be relevant. So
Does either one of these parties believe that both of them being joint residential primary parents is going to work from this point forward?
I don't know how it could work absent moving.
Which means to designate a primary residential parent, I have to consider statutory factors.
Which then gets
Overrule the objection and allow it to come in for that purpose.
who did the primary, as the kids were born on the day-to-day upbringing, care for, clothing, feeding of the children?
That'd be me.
Okay. What was your traditional role during the marriage?
Well, can you define
In
traditional?
In relationship to the children, were you stay-at-home dad? Did you work? That's where I'm going with it.
So it was a combination of both. Often I worked when she went into the service and we were in Montana. She communicated to me that she wouldn't be comfortable with them in childcare. I said, okay, I'll sacrifice yet again. I'll stay home. And that was a good time. It was me and the youngins all day, every day. I enjoyed that. We made some really good memories.
All right, and now, during that time, I mean, explain to me what connections you and the children made during that time when it was formative and then through today, the love and affection between you and the children,
Starting from what point?
from day one.
Oh. Well, in our marriage, I've always been the understanding parent. So when there's an issue with our youngin, I always ask questions. I want to get to the root problem, the root cause of the problem, and fix it and build them up, whether it's an emotional problem they had, a behavioral problem they had, or just getting a boo-boo. Whatever it is, I like to break it down and ensure that they learn from that.
And what connection did your wife have? What was her connection and role in raising the kids over the years?
Generally, feminine housemaker, housewife
All right.
role.
All right. How long was she in the military during the course of the marriage?
So married in 2014. She joined in 19.
Was she stationed away? What period of that after she joined?
After Montana and before she went to Idaho.
Okay. And do you see any issues with her parenting skills?
I absolutely do. I've always had that opinion. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do.
What would that be? Explain to the judge what your concerns are.
So she had some trauma as an adolescent with her mother, and it was a family of 5, now 4, unfortunately. Her mother left at the age of 14, I believe actually was the age of 14 when her mother was incarcerated. And I believe that has had a very drastic impact on how she interacts not only with people but with our kids.
Give me an example of that interaction.
So oftentimes, when her stress level peaks, it's not her response to calm down, take a step back, assess the situation, and try to give advice and build that child back up.
What's her typical response?
Anger, yelling.
Do you yell at the children?
Yes, sir.
Any other issues you see with her parent?
Obviously, we all have our picture perfect ways of handling certain scenarios. I feel that the discipline of a child pays off not in the immediate, it pays off once they become young adults and they're able to make their own decisions. I'm sure, I feel that lesson wasn't taught to her, therefore she cannot relate on that level and transfer that to our youngins. That's an inability.
What's the difference in the discipline styles between you and your ex-wife?
I believe it's changed some since we lived together. She's often called me to be the disciplinary in her household, which, but oftentimes it was raising her voice, and go to your dad.
So she's not able to, Why would she do that?
I have my speculations that maybe it was because it was easier for her to allow me to handle it. And, that manipulation, continued throughout our marriage.
I'm gonna ask you it's kind of a broad question. It goes back to something you had told me past. I mean, what do you anticipate the outcome would be if you were the primary parent of the children in their lives?
They will
And I'm going to
undoubtedly.
object to the form of that question.
Speculation.
How do you plan on raising the children? What style?
Godly.
All right, now, do you know of any emotional issues that your wife may have that would affect her ability to parent a child?
I do have a speculation that she may have.
Objection, Your Honor.
Same speculation.
All right. You observed anything that might give you an indication that your wife may have some emotional problems?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me what you observed.
Her reaction to stressful situations is not that of, in my opinion, not that of a very well-developed young adult.
Right. And tell me.
Judge, I object to that last answer that was given. He's not qualified to offer that conclusion.
See, he has some basis in education to show that he has the training to be able to make these kinds of observations and judgments. I would sustain the objection.
Let me go back now. Listen to what I asked. Tell me what you observed, don't the opinion the judge will make his own opinion.
Yes, sir.
All right, so tell me what you observed.
I've seen her lash out at our kids for being little, making little kid decisions that she didn't like. And her popping, yelling, scolding them, which she knows clear that is not. We want and intended to do as far as discipline is concerned in our household.
All right, so you have some concerns the way she interacts with the children? Is that what
That's
I
correct.
Okay. All right, now I want to talk about the child and its relationship with people in South Carolina now, where they were living with you and so forth. Tell me about their interactions between other family members, siblings, and things of that nature. Who do they have there?
Where do I start? Where do you want me to start with the family?
Well, let's start with your parent.
Okay, so my parents are my daddy Todd, my stepmama Michelle, my mother Mo, and my mother's married to a lady named Lisa. Those are my parents. My grandparents outside of that is my mother's mom, Oma. She's widowed. On my stepmother's side, there's my grandma G. And
Do these live within close proximity to your home?
yes, sir.
Okay. And what interactions have both of your children had with these people?
A lot. I mean, it's family. We get together. We're real tight. Ashley can attest. We're real close. We all hang out, and we always have real good times together.
Did your parents and their grandparents, what did they do housing wise, feeding, caring for the kids while your wife was in Florida?
So
What role did they play?
we lived with my mom and my stepmom, my dad and my stepmom, Shell, Todd and Shell, in Sandy Run, South Carolina, the home I grew up in. They offered to take us in while she was overseas in Korea. And I said, I think that'd be a blessing, create more of that bond with the grandparents. They're awesome people, Outside of that, my mom, she just bought a home not far from where I grew up. They love babysitting the kids and taking them out, and we just have a good time. I mean, everybody's dying to just, and I'm gonna tell you, it's been complicated with what's going on now.
Are them showing any affection between the children and your parents?
Of course.
Would you describe them as having a close relationship?
Absolutely.
What about the other members that your children are connected with in South Carolina?
So family members or friends?
Well, we're going to get to friends. Let's stick with
Family members. So there's my dad's side. Like I said, my dad's side, mom's side. I've got a huge family.
Right.
And every one of them's got youngins. We always get together, holidays, we have parties, and the kid, my role is I'm the big kid. I like to go out and we play in the yard. We're going to be doing something fun in the yard, and I kind of take all the youngins and we all go out there and we just have a good time. But
Right.
yes, the bonds are extremely there and live.
Wyatt, was he playing baseball at some point in time while Yards living full-time in South Carolina?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
So I coached I coach his spring ball season, which is spring recreation. Oh man, and that season was great. We got all played through the season, had a great season, developed these young men, overcome a lot of adversity that season. WT he grew so much in that season as a family member with his young brothers on his ball team.
Has he been able to play, or do you know, since he's been back in Idaho?
Not baseball. I want to say he played soccer.
Gotcha. All right. And did he make any friends? Did either Adeline or Wyatt make any friends while they were in school in South Carolina?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Did they come over and play with them a lot?
Absolutely.
And now, I want to talk about something your wife said. She said that she had paid you $700 something into a bank account as child support during that period when she was in Korea. Did that ever happen?
I don't recall that, but she told me that she paid my stepmom after the fact for rent or something like that.
So you didn't even know about that?
That's correct.
Okay. When did you first learn about that?
I would guess I would say probably when she got back.
What was y'all's agreement on the child support?
Well, what we had on the parent plan, there was no child support, so we go either way.
What I'm getting at is one thing said 300 and something, and there's a deviation of 300. What actually was it supposed to be? What did y'all intend?
It was no child support either way.
Okay, gotcha. So there was a typo? You gotta say yes, you can't shake your head.
My understanding was that there was no child support during the period.
All right, did you understand, and you correct me if I'm wrong, was your understanding that there was a deviation? Is that what you understood? Is the deviation is zero, that's what I'm getting at.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, and I'll put words in your mouth. That amount that was on there, was that the calculated amount? Do you remember that? That 300 and something?
Oh,
Okay, and you may not remember, it's been a while, okay. All right, now I want to go on to a couple other things. Have you, and I asked your now ex-wife about talking to the children about this court case. Had she done anything else that alarmed you? That she had told the kids?
yes, sir.
What did she tell the kids?
So to start, me and my son, WT, I could tell that he was withdrawing. He was being quite stand up, which is very much out of his normal personality from me.
And when did this take place?
When he was getting home, when he came home. So because I like to communicate, I thirsted for communication throughout my marriage. I'm a talker. I like to break stuff down. So I said, Bubba, would you like to talk? And we talked. And he said,
Judge, I'm going to object to the child's, what he may have said as hearsay.
Saying that only he can repeat what the child says.
Now, hold on, listen to me. What I said is, did you come to learn anything she had told your children? Do you know what she told?
yeah.
What was it?
She's,
Objection, Your Honor, it's just a backdoor way of asking for hearsay.
Told the children unless the children told him, unless it was an admission or a statement by her to him, it would not be admissible.
Let me rephrase it.
Sustaining the objection.
As the effect of whatever you were told, what did you do or what was your reaction to that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Effect on listeners, an exception, Judge.
What was that?
Your question is, what was his reaction?
Yes.
So he's asking for this gentleman's reaction to something he was told. How is that not admissible? And I have any any real merit to it, but I mean, it's.
He's asking for his client to relay how his child reacted to something that somebody else told
You're
him.
asking for this witness's reaction or the child's reaction?
This reaction.
His reaction.
That's not what he asked, but if that's what he's asking now.
Perhaps we misunderstood. I understood him to ask what his reaction was, not the child's. I'll allow the question as to his reaction, although he cannot repeat what was being said.
Are you ready? Do you recall the question now?
I'm sorry, could you ask it again, please?
As a result of your conversation, what was your reaction to that conversation you had with Wyatt?
Disgust, concern, fear, and in some way, he feels alone, and it killed me.
And what type of, what did you observe about his demeanor and so forth?
Well, he just really he didn't want to make no one feel bad. He felt he had so much guilt on him.
Judge, again, he's being generic with what he said the child said, but he's still attempting to tell the court very self-serving testimony that's hearsay said by a child who is not here, and it cannot be corroborated by anyone except him who this suits. I object.
The objection is to the fact that your client is relating the child's statements by referring to the fact that he feels guilt. And I don't know how he would. Guilt is not an emotion that necessarily demonstrates itself to the outward observer. I sustain the objection.
I'm going to move on past that. Did you have any concerns about Wyatt after you had that conversation?
Yes, sir.
What were your concerns?
That he was not gonna allow the door to be open so that I could be let in and create the bond back.
Did you feel like your wife was alienating you from Wyatt?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. How he feels about how his child is reacting toward him, I think it's speculative and he's not able to say that.
Well, he's allowed to say he feels that she's alienated him, but whether there's any truth to that or not would be supported by some evidence that supports that belief. It goes to his credibility. Overruled.
Okay, and I want to move on to another topic here. Now, where are you working in South Carolina?
I work in the shop is in Gaston, South Carolina, but it's essentially around the greater Columbia area.
How many days a week are you working over there?
4 days. I work 4 10s.
4 10s. You know what day? Is it a fixed set of days, or do they rotate, or
No, sir. It's Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday? All right. And how far is the school from you?
About 3 miles approximately.
3 miles. All right. And how far does your parents live in proximity to that?
My dad's home is, you said in miles? Probably about, I think it's about 20 miles. Mama's house, about 20 miles. Grandma's house, 20 miles. Aunt Uncle Mike, 30 miles.
Okay. How much are you making over at where you're employed now?
After taxes, about $750 a
We
week.
okay. All right. Right now, is your wife does she still have the children on the government insurance plan?
We both do. She's got them on. It's called TRICARE Prime,
Okay.
and I've got on TRICARE Select Retired.
So you've got it also through your military retirement?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right, and is that costing you anything on the premiums? Do you remember?
Premiums are $30 a visit, or copays are $30 a visit.
No. What I'm asking, do you have to pay for your insurance? Okay, do you know how much you pay per month?
I pay, I think it's yearly. No, is it quarterly? I think the total for the year is like 800.
Okay, it's not much.
No, sir.
And that covers the kids, that would cover
Yes,
the
sir.
kids?
Yes,
Gotcha.
sir.
All right, and what normal hours do you work through the week? Is it a day job?
Yes, sir.
All right, you know what time you go in?
Every day I go in at 6:30, and every day I'm back to the shop at 4:30, home by 5.
Gotcha. And now, you're living with your girlfriend,
Yes, sir.
fiance, however, tell me what the relationship is.
Future wife, there's no doubt.
Future wife, all right. Where did you meet this lady at?
I met her in Sandy Run in our town that I grew up in. She was working in a coffee shop.
Coffee shop.
Yes, sir.
All right. And the kids met her?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so what is their relationship?
It's outstanding. It really is. They have a bond, and she is such an excellent communicator. She helps oftentimes lead the conversations for I, and the youngins. And she was a missionary, and she worked with kids growing up, in her young adult life, and she's been so helpful. And the kids, Addie and her get together, and they frolic, and they do all the girl stuff, and her and Bubba, they like to just go in the backyard and play all the time. It's really strong. It's
Is she from South Carolina also?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes,
Does
sir.
she have any other children?
No, sir. No, sir.
And y'all do plan to get
Once this is handled and she has a clear understanding of that, that is my plan. Yes,
All
sir.
right, now I'm going to ask you a question that goes kind of the meat of what I want to hear. Are you still willing to move to Tennessee if necessary to carry out this plan?
Absolutely. That's what we agreed on.
Now, your wife made some issue about you bought a house. Does that interfere with your plans to move?
No, sir. If need be, I can come right back here and make it work.
Okay. All right. So you're still willing and able to
Yes,
to do that. All right. Now, when you lived here, where did you work at that time?
Well, when I was here in Tennessee, I came here in 2013, right after basic.
I'm talking
Okay.
about after Fort Campbell. What did you do in private?
After I worked at Attorney Center Prison.
Did you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you leave there on good terms?
I did. Yes, sir.
Eligible for rehire?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, now, you submitted a plan, we submitted a proposed plan to the court that we had asked for you to be named primary residential parent. Why would you think that, tell the judge why you think that's in both children's best interest?
I'm the better parent. It's just it's a fact. I know and can provide for the youngins what Ashley cannot, and it's not her fault. She just didn't know. She's never learned. She's never taken the time to learn. I understand that raising youngins is an ever evolving and changing role. I have to be able to adjust on the fly. I have to be able to communicate effectively to them, and every day I work on that. I build that skill set.
All right. In the proposal we submitted, you had 274 days. What are you going to do for transportation, like while she's in Idaho, Alaska, or Ohio?
I don't know.
Well, you would propose her having the summers and so forth. But what's your proposal for the long distance transportation cost?
Whatever's fair. I mean, I guess we just meet halfway.
Okay. You want to meet halfway? But I'm
I
asking.
want to work with her. I know that. I want there to be something on paper that she can't worm her way out of. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. And the parenting plan that you have gives, mom essentially the full summer vacations and all the other vacations. Is that good for the children, what we've got, where they're going to school in South Carolina, and then they spend essentially all the vacation times with mom that you can accommodate?
I think that's perfectly fine.
Okay. But you're still willing to implement the plan we've got?
That's absolutely correct.
When did she tell you that she was not going to carry through with this plan?
She's very selective about her words. I don't know if she's ever actually directly said it, but she's hinted at it heavily. And, trying to get a clear answer out of her is possible.
What did she tell you about when she was re-enlisting?
Oh, yeah. She said, when I re-enlist, because I plan on re-enlisting if I make rank. I said, well, how is that? That completely destroys my relationship with the kids. Don't you see that?
Is that what you based the contempt on, that you thought she'd re-enlist?
Yeah.
She made you believe that?
Yes, sir.
Is that kind of typical for her?
Oh, absolutely.
Describe to the court, how she tries to communicate with you.
There is no communication. It's her way, and I'm gonna have to ride this pony out, and that's all there is to it. I attempted and tried for years to bring her to the table to communicate what's best for us at the time. It does not matter. It lands on deaf ears every time. And it comes to a point where I just said, well, better to get along.
And are you able to care for these kids in South Carolina?
100%. Yes, sir.
All right, now, your wife kind of alluded to when she was in Korea that your parents did all the parenting. Is there any truth to that?
No, sir.
Well, describe what your role was as a parent during that.
Well, they were with me 24/7, and I took advantage of every ounce I could get. And they were there as my mentors. Obviously, they care deeply about their grand youngins. They have a very strong bond. Their role was our entire role. Work together, build bonds, take care of the kids. I work, daddy works, mom works, make it work.
You know of any bonds or interactions Wyatt or Addie's had with your ex-wife's family?
My ex-wife's her blood.
Right.
They're very spread out. I guess when we were still good and married, all her sisters kind of married service members, and they came closer to where we were, and their youngins, we did have play dates and stuff, but they all started to move off, and we were the last ones here, so we bought a house in Jayville, but no one, as far as her kin, blood, just her grandmother's here.
Do you know of her having any relatives in any place she's proposed to move or move the children? Idaho, Alaska,
None in Idaho,
Ohio?
none in Alaska, Ohio. Well, she's married, but she's not blood kin, but she's married now.
Gotcha. Judge, may I have a moment?
You bet. Your witness is requesting a break, a restroom break.
Oh, okay. Sounds like a good plan.
And we'll take a short restroom break.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All rise.
All right, just so everybody's on the same page, we'll be quitting at 4 today. The courthouse closes at 4. We'll be closing at 4 too.
All right. All right, Mr. Smart, if I want to turn your attention to the screen here.
Yes, sir.
The top picture, who are those two children in there?
Me, Bubba, and
You
Sissy.
want me to look at it too?
If you would.
That's me, Bubba, and Sissy in that top
All
picture.
right, where was that taken at?
That was on the flight from Idaho to Orlando. Yes, sir.
How long was that flight? Well, I'm talking about the flight and the layover.
That entire, well, that was I reckon that was about 12 hours because it was a long layover.
Was. All right, and this next picture, what's this picture right here?
There's just some of our family that came. I scheduled I rented a big old shelter out there at a new park in our town, and we had some family members come and some dear friends of ours come. They brought their youngins, and it was just a really good day, real good. But it rained, so. Poor kids.
Was that over South Carolina?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think 10 minutes from the house.
Gotcha. These pictures right here, what are these?
There's some of my ball players and Bubba posing with them, and their little sissy in the back playing with her friends. That was at a All-Stars game. There's Isaac and BB and Braden WT and one of my little pictures there from this year.
Was there any time Addie was running around unsupervised and unattended at these ball games?
No, sir.
In this picture here, if I can get it back centered. Who are these people?
On the left there's Jenny, my girlfriend, myself, and Addie.
All right. Where's that picture taken at?
We took that one. That is the zoo in Idaho from the trip when we flew up for spring break.
When she went out, did she get to meet your ex-wife?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And is this also from Idaho?
Yes, sir. I think that was the first day.
Was it?
Yes, sir.
Same here on these two, or well, the bottom one looks something else.
The bottom was my mom and Jenny and WT and Sis at mom's house. She bought, it was her first home purchase.
Gotcha. And this last one?
That's Jenny and Addie helping scramble some eggs for Jenny's supper.
Gotcha. And is this where y'all are living now?
Yes, sir. It's my home right now.
Okay, gotcha. And Judge, I can get you a USB of this, but I just wanted to let everybody know who was talking about. Now, Mr. Smart, anything else you want to tell the judge about this case or the custody?
Yes, Your Honor. My intention this entire time was to go by the parenting plan, move and raise our youngins half and half. And we're here because she deemed it necessary to change her plans and feed her self-interest. I never wanted to get to this point. I still think that we can resolve it. For our kids, we need to resolve it. There's no reason for us to have this non-communication. It is so easy. Me and Jenny do it every day. Me and WT do it every day. It's not hard to talk, build a plan, and execute it. I can lead a horse to water. I cannot make it drink. It's the entire definition of our marriage and the end of our marriage, and now these proceedings that are unnecessary. I just want what's best for the kids. Our kids deserve it. I love them. I will raise them properly. They are happy where they're at. That's all.
Sanders, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Sure.
I'll leave it here.
Better move it on nothing else.
You do it on purpose, won't you?
Probably. Mr. Smart, the parenting plan that you and your wife signed, back in 2022. Specifically, you signed it on February the 1st of 2022. And she signed it on January the 18th of 2022. Do you recall that?
I recall the day I signed it. I remember signing it. I don't remember the day, no, sir.
And that parenting plan that was ultimately filed with the court and then incorporated in a final decree, is that parenting plan, is it in their best interest?
The one you're holding, you bring it to me so I can confirm that's the one you got, please, sir.
Yeah, President.
You may.
Can you say it again?
This parenting plan, that's the court order, is it in the best interest of your minor children?
As far as the way that I've been read the parenting plan and my understanding of the parenting plan, from my point of view, it is, yes, sir.
It is in their best interest.
From my point of view and my understanding of that parenting plan, I do believe it is.
Okay. Now, you have your children on TRICARE Select.
Correct.
When did you add them on to your TRICARE Select?
My understanding, they've been on since they were born.
Have been on your insurance since
Yes,
they
sir.
were born?
Yes, sir. And as well as her, we've shared. She went active duty.
When did you meet your girlfriend?
Let's see. When you say that, do you mean
When did you
I meet
begin a
her?
relationship with your girlfriend?
My relationship? We never really titled it, truthfully.
Well, are you titled now?
Yes, sir. We are now. Yes, sir.
Okay. When did she move in with you?
She moved in when I bought the home in December.
Okay. And so how long before that were y'all dating?
Well, like I said, we never really. We just we said,
I don't know.
I'm in love with you, and she told me she's in love with me. So we never really titled it. To be quite honest.
You just meet and go out on dates, but never really talked about it, huh? Is that your testimony?
She never really came up, truthfully.
When did you start going on dates with your untitled girlfriend?
I reckon our first date was I don't really remember.
Were you still married?
No,
You weren't married?
no.
You're positive of that?
Yeah.
But when did you first go on your date?
I don't really it was after the divorce was done, for sure, because it just wouldn't be respectful, to move forward until it's final. That's common sense.
But you don't remember when you started dating?
I really know, sir. Hope she ain't hearing that. Hope she didn't hear that.
Now, where did you work when you lived in Tennessee?
What part? What time? Because I was in Tennessee for quite a while.
Well, did you work at the Hickman County, the jail, or the sheriff's department?
I did.
Did you get a reprimand there?
What do you mean by reprimand?
Did you get in trouble for some behavior toward an inmate?
I got talked to, but it wasn't like it was verbal. It was
Being
verbal.
too rough with an inmate?
No, it was what was it? Man, that was a while back. No, it wasn't anything about rough with an inmate like what we would call abusive force in law enforcement. It wasn't nothing like that.
What was it for?
I think it was how I responded to them. I think it was, man, that was 2017, I think. That was a while ago.
How you responded to inmates?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Are you diagnosed with anything?
Such as,
PTSD?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure what my retirement was based on. I'm not really sure.
Have you sought treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder?
No,
You've never been diagnosed with that?
not to my knowledge, no, sir.
You on medication?
No, sir.
None?
You mean like daily routine?
Yeah, medication.
No, sir.
So are you telling me if we subpoenaed your medical records, there's no history of a diagnosis of PTSD in those records?
I'm saying that I don't know if you find that or not.
Well, you would know, wouldn't you?
You would think I would review these things, but I generally.
Well, my point is there a reason why your memory was impeccable as it related to the birth of your children forward and your wife's inability to care for your children, but you're suddenly having difficulty recalling why you were reprimanded at an employer in Hickman County and whether or not you've been diagnosed with PTSD? Is there a reason why your memory has suddenly escaped you?
No, I can't say there is.
Huh?
Can't say there is.
Is it because of the person who's asking you the questions?
No, sir.
Are you familiar with the military idea of, it's called smoking?
Smoking.
Yeah, smoking. As a form of discipline?
Yes.
What is that?
Well, it's exercises and let's see, how would you define that? It's a disciplinary action that you'd use for, I guess, to teach a point, get a point across.
And that's a method that you use to discipline your children, correct?
Well, I don't certainly call it that anymore.
Huh?
Well, I don't call it that anymore.
But you have used that way of discipline on Wyatt before?
Yes, sir. I do that, and we agreed on that years ago that was absolutely the way that, we agreed to handle disciplinary versus like popping them on the butt.
In fact,
Neither one of us like to do that.
you spanked your son when you all were still married, and your wife brought to your attention that you had spanked him too hard, and after that, you stopped and started smoking, correct? Which is a military form of discipline.
I don't recall that, no.
Involving push-ups, running in the snow.
But I do do that type of discipline still, yes, sir. But you said running in the snow? Could you define, what do you mean, just like running in the snow?
Snow on the ground, running. Running in the snow.
I don't recall doing that, no, sir. I've had my son do push-ups, yes, as a form of discipline. It's quite effective.
Now, when your wife was in Korea, were your children in daycare?
My daughter.
And you and your wife had a joint bank account at that time, correct? And the daycare was paid out of the joint account?
I believe sometimes it was. Sometimes the money wasn't there.
And your wife was depositing money monthly into that joint account?
I don't really remember. I know that I had to pay it. It was either out of one of them accounts, but I paid it and made sure that she was taken care of while I was at work.
And then she was also providing money to your mother, I believe, and
I heard about that, yeah, when she got back, she told me. I didn't know about that during the time.
to help pay for housing and different things for you and the children
Well,
while
she
you were
never gave an
there.
explanation for what it was for, no.
Now, when your wife returned to the States from Korea and she went to Idaho with the children, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When your wife returned from Korea, she left South Carolina and went to Idaho with your children.
Right,
And they stayed there with her for over a year.
right.
And during that time period, you made one trip to Idaho, is that right?
But I could afford, yes, sir.
And
Which almost didn't happen because
during
She
that
not
time
wanting me to
period,
come.
did you provide your wife with any type of support monetarily for the children?
no, our agreement, our parental parenting plan the understanding was that there was no monetary right to exchange. We both understood that.
Well, despite what you think the parenting plan may have said, which I submit to you it doesn't, do you think?
Objection, argumentative.
But argumentative, the plan doesn't say anything about not paying child support. I read it earlier, it says that the father shall pay to the mother a sum of $280 monthly. And it goes on to say if there is a deviation from it, but it doesn't say what the deviation was. That was drafted by the father and his counsel, so any ambiguity must be construed against the party that drew the contract. So it is not an argumentative question. The court order and the parenting plan adopted clearly obligated him to pay $280 a month. Overruled.
Do you think that your children could have used your assistance financially for this past year while they were in Idaho with their mother?
Well, yeah, if she would have asked for it, she would have got it.
She didn't ask for it, therefore she didn't get it.
No, I mean, if she would, my understanding and the understanding that I got from my attorney was the $280 was to be, the $280 was to be, I guess somehow it was, what's the word? In facto, I guess, that I didn't need to send $280 and actually understood that I didn't and wasn't sending the $280. It's clear now that today that there was some misunderstanding there.
Do you have animals?
What type of animal?
Pets?
Right now?
Yes.
No, sir.
You don't have a dog or a cat or anything?
No, sir. We did, but we got rid of it.
When did you last have a pet?
The last pet we had was Jenny's pet.
Your girlfriend's?
Yes, sir.
And did you all feed that pet?
Yes, sir.
You bought food for the pet?
Yes, sir.
And you bought a home in South Carolina, correct?
Yes, sir.
You bought that home on what date?
The 30th of December,
Of what year?
22. I
And-
believe that's right.
And you bought that home, it's in your individual name, correct?
Yes, sir.
Paid $160,000 for it?
Yes, sir.
And you have a mortgage on that property?
Yes, sir.
Is that through the Veterans Administration, a VA loan?
Yes, sir.
Were you contacted by the Department of Children's Services or whatever it may be called in South Carolina about an incident regarding Wyatt being hit with a belt by you?
Yeah, I did get a phone call, but they weren't telling me what happened and nothing. I never got a response back, or I never heard anything about it. So nothing ever came of it.
Well, the reason nothing ever came of it, isn't it true? Because by the time they investigated it, the children had already left your home and were with their mother in Idaho.
I don't know that. I don't know.
And DCS decided to drop it at that point.
I don't know the answer to that. Like I said, I was never contacted.
If I could have one moment, Your Honor.
You may.
That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
Read the record.
Try to be brief. Mr. Smart, why did you send the kids to Idaho with your wife?
Well, I've been in her shoes, quite frankly. I've been gone away from my youngins out of the country 3 times, and the only thing you want is to be with your youngins, and I knew that's what she needed. That is, without a doubt, that's what she needed. That's what youngins needed.
What was the purpose of that trip?
The trip to Idaho,
Yes, for the kids with her.
I needed them to create that, that bond that they had before.
Okay. You're just trying to get mom and the relationship between
Right.
the kids and mom? Okay.
Yes, sir. Like I said, I've been in her shoes. It's hard.
No further questions.
I have one question. I wrote this down. You said, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make it drink. Explain to me what you mean by that statement.
Yes, Your Honor. Throughout our marriage, I communicated as hard as I tried to communicate to her. I just wanted to have a discussion about all the parenting things, marriage things, making decisions, because I was always on it didn't matter what my opinion didn't matter. It was her way. And I tried for years, and it came a point where I understood that it was best to just get along. So I just made her happy. Everything I could do, I just said, yes, ma'am, we'll make it work. I'll do that. You got it. And I never could express my feelings to her. It just, the communication wasn't there, Your Honor, is what I'm saying.
You filed the petition for divorce, correct? You're the one who sought the divorce.
Because she wanted me to. She told me that she was divorcing me, and this is why I'm here and she's in Korea, Your Honor.
Right. Well, you're the petitioner, though, and at the time that you filed your petition, she was in the service and in Korea.
Correct, Your Honor.
And all of these provisions in this parenting plan, have you read it? Did you read the parenting plan?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you read it before you signed it?
Yes, Your Honor. Me and Ellen, attorney.
All right, thank you. You may step down.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm pretty sure the judge is reiterating that because what she's asking to do is not violating anything that's in the parenting plan. And what he did actually did violate the parenting plan because he was supposed to come see the kids over spring break. He said he couldn't come, and then at the last minute said he could, whereas in the parenting plan it said he had to give her, I think it was 30 days notice. He has violated things multiple times. She has followed them, yet he's still fighting for this. So I think that's why the judge is trying to get a reason from him. Give me a solid reason, because there has to be an exceptional reason for a parenting plan to be changed.
Mr. Baker, you have any other witnesses? Mr. Sanders, you have any witnesses you wish to call?
I'm going to recall my client.
Come back up, please, ma'am. We've been referring to you as Miss Smart. What is your married name?
It's still Smart right now.
Okay.
Just be direct or rebuttal.
Whichever he wants it to be, it's his client.
Yeah, I'm calling her sort of.
He hadn't put on any proof. You closed your proof, and now he can put on whatever proof he wishes.
Ms. Smart, you've already been placed under oath today, and you've already testified, so I just have a few additional questions to ask you. When your children were born, up until the time that you all divorced, can you generally tell the court what the parenting responsibilities look like in your home?
Traditional, I was the homemaker. I raised the kids. He provided money for the family.
Did you work, or were you a stay-at-home parent?
In the beginning of Wyatt, I stayed at home, but then finances got a little tough, so I had to get jobs on and off.
Were you the parent generally responsible for feeding them and getting them up and bathing them and
Everything.
those types of things?
Yes, sir.
What about those doctor visits and those types of things?
Yes, sir.
What was Mr. Smart's job during those years?
In the beginning, it was military. We met when he was stationed at Fort Campbell. And then when he got out, he got a job at, I believe, the Attorney Center and then the county. And then we moved to New Johnsonville. Well, that's as we moved to New Johnsonville, those are the jobs.
And do you recall that he was terminated or asked to leave his job at Hickman County?
Yes.
Did he tell you why he was leaving that job or had lost that job?
From what he explained was they had a guy that no one could handle, so they called him in and he took care of it. And I guess it was someone that wasn't an average day citizen's child or nephew or something, and he pretty much got let go for that, or asked to be let go for that.
To your knowledge, is your ex-husband diagnosed with PTSD?
To my knowledge, he is.
Objection without a foundation and basis.
I went to
Yeah,
appointments.
when there's an objection, you need to sit quietly until I rule on the objection.
Yes, sir.
The objection is the lack of foundation. I sustain it until you lay a foundation.
Have you talked with your husband, or has he shared with you the fact that he has PTSD?
Yes, sir.
He has told you these things?
Yes, sir.
Has he, to your knowledge and based on what he's told you, is he receiving some sort of payment from the government because of that?
Yes, sir.
What's the form of that or the nature of that payment he's receiving?
I'm not sure what. Can you
Is he receiving some sort of disability?
He is. Yes, sir.
And that's from the military?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the term smoking?
Yes, sir.
Is that a military term?
I learned when he was in the Army, so I didn't know prior to being introduced to the military.
And you heard Mr. Smart, he testified that it's a disciplinary tool.
Yes, sir.
It involves physical, I don't know what you call it.
It's pretty much spurts of physical labor until someone gives up or whoever's over them feels like they've had enough.
And have you witnessed your husband using that form of, I don't know what you call it, behavioral modification with your son?
Yes, sir.
How old was your son when he did that?
When we moved to New Johnsonville is when he started, because I didn't agree with how hard he was spanking he was almost two-year-old. So he found other measures. So he'd make him plank or run a little bit and stuff, but then it got drastic. I know when it snowed and he had him out there in the snow, and we got into it because he was barefoot out there in his night clothes.
Making him do some sort of,
Push-ups and running in the yard.
and how old was he?
To my knowledge, he was between 2 and 3. It should have been 2017 to 2018.
And did you speak with your husband about your feelings about what he was doing?
I did.
And how was that met?
He just kept on. He wanted another alternative to discipline our son, and I didn't want him spanking, so he found that was adequate. But to the point where, for adults maybe, but not to children. Yeah, I maybe a couple push-ups for a 3-year-old's normal, like 1 or 2, but he would be out there until he felt like he learned his lesson.
Now, did you hear your husband tell the court that he's a better parent than you are?
I did.
Do you agree with that?
I don't agree that he's a better parent than me, no.
And why is that? What are your concerns about his parenting?
I believe he has best interest, but he doesn't, I don't know if it's the PTSD, I don't know what it is, but he takes things too far when like he said, discipline, he likes to talk it out. That just recently started happening. I am 110% glad that's happening. But before it was, hey, you're going to do this for an hour until I feel like you've learned your lesson, or Any little thing, anything. A child grows and learns what to do and what not to do. Any little nitpicky thing, he would get in trouble for.
Were you treated like the children while you all were married?
I was not physically abused, no. Mentally, yes, but not physically.
And I know you've already testified to this, and Mr. Smart was a bit unclear about whether he could remember or not, but what support did you send to Mr. Smart and his family while you were in Korea?
His parents, I sent so there's something in the military called BAH. For me, it was $14.92. So I split it. I gave his parents, which they said they didn't want it, but I sent it anyways, just in case, $700. And then I sent to our region's joint account the other $792 of it.
Is that a housing allowance? Is that what that is?
Basic housing allowance, yes, sir.
And did Mr. Smart know that you were doing that?
Yes, sir, 110%. He was drawing. I'm not on the account anymore. I don't know if he kept the account. I know he had it when I left the account, but there was transactions where he'd go to the bank and pull out. You can see the $263 or whatever every week he would pull out to pay the office.
Was that for childcare?
For Addie, yes.
And did you all have conversations about the fact that you were putting this money into the account?
He knew, 110%. He knew that the money was in there. I put it in there monthly.
And what about his parents? Did they know that you were sending them money?
They did.
Did you send them a check or did you make a deposit
It was direct deposit.
into their
Yes.
checking account?
They didn't use it, but it was there if they needed it.
Well, how do you know they didn't use it?
They returned it back to me when I moved back to Idaho.
Gave you that money that you had sent them?
Yes. And surely they could have used it. That's a lot of people in one house.
Your ex-husband was asked this question. I'll ask you a similar question. Is there anything else that you would like to tell this court, about your children or about this situation?
I have since, it's probably almost 10 years, all I do is eat, sleep, breathe for my children. Since I found out I conceived Wyatt, that's all I care about. It's all a mother should care about is their kids. I know Wade's not a bad dad. I'm not a bad mom. It's just a situation where we're not in the same area. I agree. But there is no foundation to prove that I am unfit to have my kids like that parenting plan states that I should. Again, I have done so much for my kids. Everything I do, I think of the good and the bad outcome. And the deciding factor is about my kids. How will it affect them and if it's positive or negative? There's always going to be both sides to everything, but that's why I am the way I am, is for my kids.
During the past year, have you tried to ask Mr. Smart for any type of monetary support?
I have.
How have you done that?
I had messaged him, and we had talked over the phone.
And what did he say, or how did he respond to you?
He told me he didn't feel comfortable giving me money.
Did he offer any explanation as to why he did not feel comfortable?
He's one of those people that what he says goes. So there's no point arguing because he'll hang up on you or just not talk about it.
And you heard him say that, yes, he was the filing party in the divorce, but that he didn't have a choice in the matter. Is that correct? Are you somehow controlling or manipulating him or puppeting him to do everything that you tell him to do?
No, sir. He's a grown man. He makes his own decisions.
That'll be all right now, Your Honor. Thank you.
Becky, do you have any questions?
As a mother, all you should care about your kids.
Yes, sir.
Why did you get married?
What do you mean?
Because that's what altered this plan here.
What altered the plan was the buying a house and then the marriage, yes.
Oh, so it's not getting married, you gotta add a house in there. You did hear Mr. Smart testify, he's willing to move back, correct?
I heard that's what he said he would.
Are
yes.
you willing to move back?
I'm willing to move wherever the judge says I should move.
Okay. You do agree, you wouldn't have a problem at all moving back if it wasn't for you getting married? Because you would be out of the military now.
In a natural state, you would want to be with your spouse.
All right, so now you care more about your spouse than your children.
No, I think a two-parent household would benefit the kids. I think the experiences would benefit the kids.
Wouldn't two natural parents raising their kids co-parenting be the best scenario for two children?
It would if they would both agree and do what they're supposed to do. We wouldn't be here if everything was set in stone, did what that parenting plan you drafted up, if we followed it.
Which was your plan, correct?
I'm sorry?
Which was your plan, correct?
Which was what he drafted up with you.
And you acknowledged that there was not to be any child support while you was in Korea, correct?
To me, and I thought our acknowledgement was we, if the kids' needs are met, or if the kids need something, we'd split it 50-50.
Yeah, and the point is if there was child support and you were paying your basic housing allowance, we would have put that in there.
I'm not sure.
Well, you acknowledge it was supposed to be zero because Mr. Smart was caring for the kids when you were out of country. That's a typo.
I didn't write it, sir.
I'm asking you. You knew that was the intent, was zero.
I'm not understanding your question.
The child support was supposed to be zero while you were in Korea.
While I was in Korea, yes.
All right, that's fair enough. That was my question.
We were still married while I was in Korea as well, and up until May 10th when I was back in April. That's the only part where we wasn't married. I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Did you tell Wyatt that his father doesn't care for him?
I did not.
You did not?
No, sir.
Oh. Let me play something for you.
That's gonna become true. Yeah, keep going. I want to stay equal sometimes and go on.
You want to do that because that's what mom told you was going to happen?
Judge, I object to this being played. It's,
She told you a lot of stuff
Well, I
that you
just
shouldn't
forgot.
have to.
Stop it.
I just forgot.
I was waiting to hear what we were about to hear. I haven't heard it yet, but what we're hearing here appears to be a conversation between Mr. Smart, I presume, and the child. What the child would
Where
say.
the child says exactly what I asked her that she said she never told him.
How is that admissible?
It's admissible for impeachment purposes. If that witness is lying, that's comes in for impeachment purposes, not for the fact of the matter asserted.
We know no more that witness is lying.
Evidence that is an exception to the hearsay rule that allows you to introduce hearsay evidence for impeachment purposes. There isn't one.
Well, that's good to know because the state of Tennessee does it with regularity.
It may be regular in some other courts, but it is not regular in this court. Sustain the objection, that is not admissible.
Okay, can I do it for an offer of proof?
If you want to, I'll be happy.
Or I can just put it in. We don't have
Put
to
it in
play
the
it.
record as an offer of proof if that's what you want.
Gotcha. All right, no further questions, Judge, for this witness.
I have a question, a couple of them. When you entered the military, it was shortly after the birth of your youngest child, is that correct?
Yes,
Was
sir.
that something you and Mr. Smart discussed?
Yes, sir.
Was it a joint decision that you would enter the military with such a young child?
It was.
Okay. And why was that decision made as a family decision?
He said I needed a career.
He said that? Okay. Mr. Smart was the one who suggested you go into the military? I know he was an ex-military person.
He is. When I was 18, I wanted to join, but then me and Wade got pregnant with Wyatt, so I put it off. And I just raised Wyatt, got just regular jobs. I was working a job there in, I think, up in town. And
Up in town at Dixon?
yes,
it's not a very big town to go up in, but anyway, you had a job, and then you, at some point, you decided or there was some discussion between you and him about you joining?
Yes, sir. He said I needed a career and then it would be good for me, so
All right,
it was very hard.
all right. Anything further for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down.
Thanks.
Sanders?
That's my proof.
Any rebuttal proof?
We already have the testimony of Mr. Smart. There's no point
An
of,
argument. I'm not suggesting you offer any more. I'm just asking if you want to.
Judge, my opinion, the way I analyze the situation, you got an anticipatory breach of this upcoming, soon-to-be implemented parenting plan. That, when the Smart's gonna get out of the military or stand down later in the month. The parties were supposed to move back. Both parties says they're willing and able. They just want either the judge to order it or I guess somebody to take some affirmative step to make that happen. But what happened here is, Mr. Smart was advised, hey, I'm not coming back and getting married. Now I'm going up to Alaska with my new husband. I'm going to go get straight to the point here, Judge. We don't think it's in the best interest of the children. They're familiar with South Carolina. They've got family there, ties there, connections there. And to say, I'm going to take a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I'm going to move them now, they're in South Carolina, back to Idaho. Then I want to move them shortly thereafter to Alaska. Then at 1 to 2 years again, I want to move them again to Ohio, and who knows from there. And as Ms. Martz said, I'm still on call-up status for 4 years. I say when China invades Taiwan at any moment, they're all going to get activated and go overseas. Chinese has already made their intentions to be ready for war within 4 years to take Taiwan by force. That's not disputable if you.
Is that where we're headed? You're telling me we're going to go to war with China in 4 years?
I'm just telling you what the president of China told his military to be ready for war within 4 years with the United States. That's a fact. So
Well, let me say this. I'm not sure that I would agree that is a fact, but I accept the fact that you believe that to be the case.
Well, I believe that he said that to his military defense ministers and told his military
I
to be
wasn't
ready.
in the meeting, Mr.
Right.
Baker, so unless I was sitting in the meeting, I'm not sure that I would believe that.
Okay. Well, I think that was reported in the media, but that was that. But at the end of the day, is if we go through, if we do have to we say, hey, this plan is not workable, it's not going to work. If we now go back through the factors, if we look at the factors, I mean, the emotional ties, I think favor Mr. Smart, the family connection, who's in the home, those interactions with people in the home, I think clearly favors Mr. Smart. I think continuity in this case, which is a factor you touch on, well, hey, Ms. Smart's plan is let's move these children all around the country and uproot them and change their school and change their extracurriculars and their friend base. I just don't think that's productive. I mean, I submit to the court, what's better for small children is consistency. Now Ms. Smart makes some argument that, oh, well, Dad, is not using corporal punishment now. He's PTing the kids. Well, what's wrong with that? Hey, do you want a beating or do you want to go run and do laps or push-ups?
Third option, either one.
Yeah, well, probably that is the best option for the kids, I'm sure, if you ask them. But, I don't see anything wrong with that. And, quite frankly, I don't see anything wrong if you have to use corporal punishment in a lot of circumstances. I know there's several times that, it didn't mean quite well to pay the piper for something stupid I did as a kid. But once you go through the factors, without going through them in just excruciating detail, at the end of the day, I submit to the court, the factors, if we do a reweighing of the factors as the statute recalled, they favor the father and where the kids are at in South Carolina. So I would ask the court, unless they say, hey, let's enforce this, everybody get back to Tennessee, because obviously I think the testimony is clear. that's the best interest of the children, is to do what they said, come back to Tennessee and co-parent these kids together. But if you're not going to do it, we've got to reweigh these factors. And then I would say, given the circumstances and, the wife's kind of decision to alter it from, hey, what we clearly thought was in the best interest, but now I don't want to do that because I got married. Well, that should also weigh in the factor of the father. I think, if we do reweighing and we go through all of the 15 or 14 in the catch-all factor, that those factors weigh in favor of the father, Judge.
Sanders?
Yes, sir. Get it right. I feel like the most telling thing in this case is what the parties themselves told the court. And what the parties themselves told this court is contained in the permanent parenting plan that they both filed, signed, and submitted to the court and said it was in the children's best interest. And in that parenting plan, what they said to this court was, if mother or father chooses to move to a state other than Tennessee as the children grow older, it is agreed that the equal visitation will still apply, with the children staying with the mother during the school year, and the father will have holidays and summer visitation. What they told this court was that it is in these children's best interest to be with their mother the majority of the year, including the school year, and it's in their best interest to spend holidays and summer visitation with their father. That's exactly what the parties themselves told this court. And they both testified today, and the court heard all of that. But what they said in this parenting plan, to me, is the most compelling fact that we have in the case. The parties themselves anticipated that there may come a day when they don't live in Tennessee. Father moved to South Carolina, bought a house in South Carolina, is playing house with a girlfriend in South Carolina, has a job in South Carolina. He's not coming back to Tennessee. And I can't say that I blame him. There's nothing here for him. He doesn't have a job here. He doesn't have a house here. He doesn't have a girlfriend here. He has nothing here. He's not coming back to Tennessee. The same is true of my client. There's nothing else here for her. The only family that she has here is a grandmother, I believe, that it's been testified to. So, Your Honor, the children, aside from the last 3 weeks, have been in the primary care and almost exclusive care of my client since her return from South Korea. Mr. Smart did not support them at all during that time period because he told her he didn't feel right about doing it. Wouldn't help with medical bills, uncovered medical bills, wouldn't help with any child support, nothing. Just would not help at all. And interesting to note to me is that, again, if we look back at the parenting plan, the parties themselves attempted to follow the parenting plan upon mom's return from South Korea. It says that father would have the children on a weekly basis until mother returns from South Korea. The parties agree to equal. They acknowledge, let me find my language here. Father understands that he's the primary caregiver during the time she's deployed in South Korea. This is meant to be temporary until mother's service in South Korea ends. So when mother's service in South Korea ended, she came back home. The parties followed pretty much to a T what they were supposed to do, which was the children to be with the mother primarily and with their father in the summertime and on visitation. So they themselves attempted to follow the written plan. The plan is in their best interest. They both swore to it. It's still in their best interest. My client has remarried and is asking the court to allow her to relocate to Alaska with the children. She's been their primary caregiver throughout their life, except for the period of time that she was in South Korea while the parties were still married. And we submit that is in their best interest.
This, little bit of an unusual case, and it really boils down to Mr. Baker made the argument early on about the fact that I was going to have to reconsider the factors set forth in 36.6.106 having to do with designation of child custody. We have two children, relatively young ages. One was born in 2014, one was born in 2018. In the original parenting agreement that was drafted by Mr. Smart and his attorney and signed off on by Mrs. Smart while she was unrepresented and on active duty with the military in Korea, designated them as joint primary residential parents, parentheses, only if by agreement. The child must reside equal amounts of times with both parents. So the form that's used in the statute that envisions it required that there certain things be met for them to be joint residential parents. Then it goes on to talk about the day-to-day schedule. The father shall have the responsibility for the care of the children except at the following times. Father shall have the children on a weekly basis until the mother returns to the States from the South Korea. Mother will have equal visitation when on military leave. Mother and father agree to a week-to-week split on visitation. Parties agree to an equal split on visitation alternating weeks once both parties live in Tennessee after the mother is out of the military. If the father chooses to move to a state other than Tennessee as the children grow older, it is agreed that the equal visitation will still apply, with the children staying with the mother during the school year, and the father will have split holidays and summer vacation. That's under day-to-day schedule, section D. Again, this is that was repeated later on that same page. In section J, other provisions, it goes on to basically repeat the same thing, and I've read it more than once. But it envisions that the mother was deployed to Korea at the time, and he understands that father understands that he is the primary caregiver during the time the mother is deployed in South Korea. When the mom is discharged or stationed close to the father before discharge, this agreement for equal time parenting is in effect. The special provision placing children in father's care and custody is meant only to be temporary until the end of mother's service in South Korea. When the mom is on leave, the mom shall have equal parenting time with the children. The father currently lives in South Carolina. So at that point, neither of them was here in the state of Tennessee. She was in South Korea on active duty. He had moved to South Carolina. It goes on to say that mother is currently stationed in South Korea. Once the mother is out of the Air Force, she plans to reside in Tennessee. Father plans to relocate to Tennessee with the children when the mother's out of the military. Mother and father agree to a week-to-week split on visitation once both live in Tennessee. If mother or father chooses to move to a state other than Tennessee as the children grow older, it is agreed that the equal visitation shall still apply with the children staying with the mother during the school year, and the father will have holidays and summer visitation. That went on to say, and I know Mr. Baker has argued that it was a typographical error or an error, but it does go on to say that the father's gross monthly income was $3,385, the mother's gross was $2,100, and the father was to pay $280 a month child support. It goes on to say there's a deviation, but it doesn't say anything about it, and the presumptive amount of child support without a deviation was $280. Nowhere in this document does it say anything about being anything about the fact that there was not going to be child support paid at some point by the father. And I understand what they both said, that while she's on active duty, and he had the children, they weren't requiring it, but that's not what the order says. And he drafted the order. So under the circumstances, it is incumbent upon me to determine whether or not, and a petition such has been filed here for a change of custody, to determine whether or not there's been proof of a material change of circumstances. In this opinion of this court, there's not been proof of a material change of circumstances sufficient to, in my opinion, require a change of the day-to-day schedule that they have, but that instead, I would have to designate one of the two of them as the primary residential parent. And even though it's more or less a nominal thing, this is my ruling. Looking at those factors in 36.6.106, the strength, nature, and stability of the child's relationship with each parent, whether one parent has performed the majority of parenting responsibilities relating to the daily needs of the child, certainly during a period of time back and forth, they've each performed that. The testimony from her has been that she was the primary person caring for the children until she ended up having to get employment out of economic necessity, and that he did take over some. He's testified he was the person who provided most of the care. There's no question that when she was in Korea, he and his family were providing care for the child, but on the same token, when she returned pursuant to this agreement, she's had the children for over a year, and she's been performing almost all of those, majority of those, all of the responsibility for these children. Each parent or caregiver's past or potential for future performance of parenting responsibilities, including the willingness and ability of each of the parents to facilitate and encourage a close and continuing parent relationship between the child and both of the child's parents. It is my opinion that under the circumstances, they entered into this parenting plan willingly, knowing that she could come back from Korea, that she may be living outside of the state of Tennessee. I will say this, I find as an affirmative finding that there is nothing in this parenting plan that required her to return to the state of Tennessee or required him to move to the state of Tennessee from South Carolina. It is a plan that they plan to, but plans often go awry, and there's no mandatory language that would require this court to find that she is somehow in contempt of court because she didn't move to the state of Tennessee. Just making that observation. So the parents, I think both of them have performed their parenting responsibilities. I have some issues that we'll touch on in a minute about some of the care that's been provided for the children. Number 3 is refusal to attend a court-ordered parent education. I don't find any proof about that one way or the other. They'll both, if they haven't already completed such a plan, such an educational seminar, they'll be required to do so within the next 60 days. The disposition of each parent to provide the child with food, clothing, medical care, education, and other necessary care. There's clearly, in my opinion, no question that the proof is that Mrs. Smart, even though she was stationed in Korea, provided support for these children by sending half of her basic housing allotment to Mr. Smart's family, and who were helping to provide care, and that even though they may have refunded to it, she did her part in supplying that, which is far and away more than what the child support order would have been. So she contributed $700 a month from what she was saying. Based upon that, I find that she did fulfill her obligations. Second thing is, even though there may have been some confusion about the original parenting plan's language about child support, there is no question that these children for the last over a year and a month or two resided with Miss Smart, and that Mr. Smart, for whatever reason he chose, did not comply with the court order and did not pay child support as the provision here says he was to do. And even if he said, well, it didn't really say that, he was certainly willing to allow her to provide all of the support and him do nothing for support of the children. Now, obviously, understand his travel expenses may have had some impact, but child support is one of those things that represents a parent's willingness to assume the financial responsibility for helping to take care of their children. And if you, in this court's opinion, someone who doesn't pay child support according to a court order is not fulfilling their responsibilities and role as a parent. The degree to which each parent has been the primary caregiver defined as a parent who's taken a greater responsibility for performing parenting responsibilities. Again, it is my opinion that the proof has been that she was the primary caregiver, then he became the primary caregiver, and now she is the primary caregiver. So while it's bounced back and forth, I think that's an equal application to both of them. The love, affection, and emotional ties existing between each parent and the child, I think they both love their children. There's no question that that is clearly demonstrated by the photographs that were demonstrated on the screen, that Mr. Smart loves his children and they love him. And I have no question they love their mother and she loves them. Clearly, I've observed the testimony of the parties. My decision in these cases and my finding as to these factors is based upon my observation of the two parties as they testified and my assessment of their credibility. The emotional needs and developmental level of the child, I don't have any evidence to indicate anything that would, in my opinion, affect that one way or the other. The moral, physical, mental, and emotional fitness of each parent as it relates to their ability to parent the child. I'm troubled by Mr. Smart's inability to remember whether or not he has a diagnosis for PTSD. First of all, I credit both of their service to our country. I didn't serve in the military. I grew up and came of age during the Vietnam War, and my father, a World War II veteran, dissuaded me from enlisting, and I had a high draft number. I guess you could say I was lucky. But in any event, I didn't get to serve, but I credit the service that both Mr. Smart and Ms. Smart have given to our country. But by the same token, service to our country in the military carries with it certain dangers and certain risks, and among those is the exposure to things that could create post-traumatic stress disorder. The fact that Mr. Smart does not remember what his diagnosis is concerns the court. It goes to his credibility, for one thing. But another is that if he doesn't remember that he's been diagnosed with PTSD, then it does show that there's some sort of issues there that are perhaps unresolved. So I think that is a factor that favors Mrs. Smart. Child's interaction and interrelationships with siblings, other relatives, and step-relatives and mentors. I think clearly Mr. Smart's family is extended and has that surrounding that has been shown in the photographs and things and by his testimony. And it is to these children's best interest that they have, regular extended contact with the family. Mrs. Smart, through no fault of her own, doesn't have a close relationship with her mother. We're not responsible for what our family does in their own personal life. We can only control what we do. And under those circumstances, that favor would factor Mr. Smart. The love, affection, let's get back up. Importance of continuity in a child's life, the length of time the child has lived in a stable, satisfactory environment. I believe that the children have been in a stable environment for the last year or more. It's in the environment that was envisioned by the parties that would take place if, in fact, they neither one lived in the same state. And as a result of that, I find that factor favors Mrs. Smart or Miss Smart. Evidence of physical or emotional abuse to the child or the other parent and so forth. I am of the opinion, everybody has their own opinion about disciplining of children. In my opinion, imposing physical, I don't know that you call it physical punishment, PT or smoking or whatever you want to call it, of a child of 2 or 3 years of age. I have some experience in dealing with 2 or 3 year old children. I have grandchildren of those ages, and I cannot imagine making those children do push-ups for something. Like I say, everybody has the right to parent children of their own, but that is a factor that, in my opinion, favors Mrs. Smart, because I disagree personally and professionally with the need for that type of behavior. As I pointed out to Mr. Baker, yeah, it may be better than, whipping a child, but there's a third option, timeout and other other things. I got whipped a lot when I was growing up. I didn't like it. I had to go cut my own switches when I got in trouble, and that's no fun. If you cut one that's too small, and your mother will make you go back and cut another one, or she'll take a belt. So, happens. I didn't use that type of punishment on my children, and that is my personal belief that it's not always necessary. Sometimes it is, and I don't disagree that there are times when that might be appropriate. Character and behavior of any other person residing in or frequenting the home. I have no evidence that to the contrary, that his new girlfriend, and I do find it, again, goes to his credibility. He doesn't remember when they began dating or began a relationship. Those kinds of things, just when you testify under oath in a court, the only thing I have to judge you two from is what I've seen today. In judging from what I've seen today, Mr. Smart was less than forthcoming with some of his discussions of his relationship with this young lady. It was fine that he has a girlfriend. It doesn't matter. They were getting a divorce. If he started dating her while they were separated and going through the divorce, so be it. Each parent's employment schedule, I don't find there's anything that would affect this one way or the other. Any other factor deemed relevant by the court. This factor is one that I will place some importance on. These parties entered into an agreement, and in that agreement, effectively made Ms. Smart the primary residential parent if in the event they didn't live in the same state. It's just that clear. You cannot read it any other way. There's no mandatory language in this plan that says that they must both return to the state of Tennessee. There's nothing in here that says if she doesn't return to the state of Tennessee that somehow that the rest of this plan doesn't apply. It says if the mother or father chooses to move to a state other than Tennessee as the children grow older, it is agreed that the equal visitation will still apply with the children staying with the mother during the school year. The father will have holidays and summer visitation. I would note this plan was entered into in 2022, was signed by Judge Wallace, and now we're in a year later in 2023. But by the same token, they are a year older than they were, but there's nothing in my opinion that says that that would not apply. So when they entered into that agreement, they were anticipating and envisioning that they might not both be in the same place. Hypothetical. She returns to the state of Tennessee. She lives here for 1 month. He returns to the state of Tennessee during that 1 month time. Then she decides she wants to relocate to another state. Nothing says she can't do that. She can just pick up and move. And if she does, and she lives in a different state, then this plan provides that she's the primary resident, well, that she has the children during the school year, he has them during the off year, summer. There's no other way to read it, in my opinion, and I think that under the circumstances is very clear what they envisioned and what they tried to accomplish with that. Now, to change that, in my opinion, would require that there be some proof that there is a need to do so. Mr. Smart has simply provided proof of what a close relationship he has with the children, what a close relationship they have with his family, and during the summers he coaches them and all that sort of thing. If I reverse this and give him the primary residential parent, he's going to miss out all of the summers. He's not going to coach any children. They won't be with him. They'll be with Mrs. Smart. So by enforcing this agreement, I am ensuring that he gets to continue to have that summertime with the children and coach them in baseball or whatever he chooses to do. But in any event, I am of the opinion that the plan that was originally adopted is the day-to-day schedule is in fact the same schedule that they should be adhered to. My interpretation is that it allows her to move to Idaho if she chose, or move to Alaska if she chose under this plan, and that he would then have the children during the summer and she would have them during the school year. All of the other provisions would apply. The fact that Mr. Smart has not paid child support since her return from the state of Tennessee, that is an enforceable order, even if they are not returned to the state of Tennessee, but return to the states. That is an enforceable court order for child support. If it's going to be modified, and we can do that, we can order that there be a recalculation of child support with both parties exchanging all information necessary to calculate the child support, including the total source of income and any sort of daycare that might be work-related daycare and so forth. But by the same token, it is my opinion that transportation is going to have to be considered in that. Parties will equally share in the cost of transportation because in the original parenting plan, they envisioned that they would be moving or living in different areas, and there was no provision in that for a cost of transportation to be anything other than split, and that's what they said. They said they would split everything. So that's what they'll do. And I think that I have resolved there is no contempt because, in my opinion, nothing in this order required her to return to the state of Tennessee. Any issue that I've not addressed?
Tax exemption, is it?
I don't find that there's a need to address the statutory language regarding parental relocation because when this was drafted, it envisioned the ability of the parent to relocate. And that's my ruling is that the language was anticipatory about her relocating and therefore there was no, unlike the statutory language and consideration, they don't live in the same area anyway. So, Mr. Sanders, as the prevailing party, you will draw the order and submit it to Mr. Baker for his approval. I know you both love your children, and I hope that you will try to work together to try to ensure that the children continue to have a good relationship with both parents. Decision-making, I need to alter that part of this as well. They will continue to have joint decisions in all 4 major categories. In the event they're unable to decide or reach an agreement, which I hope they will, but if they're unable, then Mrs. Smart, as the primary residential parent for these children, will make that final decision. Anything else?
Your children are with Mr. Smart right now. The plan says that summer
The way
vacation.
they'll exchange the summer is they'll return to her a week before the school system starts in the area that she's living. They'll go to him 1 week after that. All of the other provisions in the plan are the same. 1 week after school is discharged, I'm sorry. All right. Court is adjourned.
All rise.